Victoria Hale stood on that porch with champagne in one hand and desperation in her eyes, asking a complete stranger to lie for her. Not for money, not for business, for something far more desperate, escape from a life that looked perfect but felt like drowning. Caleb Hayes should have walked away. He had a daughter waiting at home, a life built on honest work and no complications. But when a billionaire looks at you like you're the only honest thing in her world, you don't think straight. One fake relationship, one night. That's what they promised each other. They were both wrong. Before we dive into how a single lie changed two lives forever, hit that like button and drop a comment with your city name. I want to see how far this story travels. Now let's begin. The parking lot was already full when Caleb pulled up in his 10-year-old Ford. He sat there for a minute, engine ticking as it cooled, staring at the house lit up like some kind of magazine spread. String lights everywhere. Cars that cost more than his annual salary lined up like a luxury dealership. Music and laughter spilling out into the night. He checked his phone. 9:47 p.m. 2 hours late. "Damn it, Marcus," he muttered, grabbing the gift bag from the passenger seat. His best friend's birthday party. The one social obligation he couldn't dodge, even though every bone in his body wanted to turn around and drive home. He'd been on a job site since 6 that morning, installing cabinets in some McMansion across town. His back hurt, his hands were raw, and he probably still had sawdust in his hair. The house belonged to Marcus's sister. Caleb had never been here before, but he knew the type. One of those modern glass and steel things that looked cold even when it was trying to be warm. He walked up the driveway, past the Teslas and BMWs, feeling every year of wear on his work boots. The front door was open. Music hit him first, something jazzy and expensive sounding. Then the crowd. Easily 50 people packed into a living room that could probably fit his entire apartment twice over. Everyone dressed like they'd just left a corporate photo shoot. Caleb smoothed down his flannel shirt. It was the cleanest thing he owned that wasn't a t-shirt. "Caleb, man, you made it. You made..." Marcus appeared through the crowd, drink in hand, grin wide. He was wearing a suit jacket over a graphic tee, somehow making it work. That was Marcus, able to float between worlds without looking like he was trying. They did the handshake hug thing. "Yeah, sorry I'm late. Job ran long. Don't worry about it. You're here now." Marcus clapped him on the shoulder. "Come on, let me get you a drink. Fair warning, though, my sister went full bougie on the bar setup." Caleb followed him through the crowd, nodding at faces he didn't recognize. The living room opened into a kitchen that looked like it had never been used for actual cooking. Marble everything. Wine bottles that probably cost more than his truck payment. "Beer?" Marcus asked, opening a fridge that hummed quietly, full of craft IPAs with names like Existential Hops and Regret in a Can. "Just water." Marcus raised an eyebrow. "You good?" "Yeah, just tired, and I'm driving." "Fair enough." He grabbed a bottle of fancy water, the kind that came from some glacier in Iceland or whatever, and handed it over. "So listen, there's someone I want you to meet. She's..." "Marcus, no." "What? I didn't even finish. You've got that look, the one you get when you're trying to set me up." Marcus put his hands up, all innocence. "I'm just saying, you've been flying solo for 3 years now. Emma's in middle school. You're allowed to have a life." "I have a life. A life that isn't work and parent-teacher conferences." Caleb took a long drink of his overpriced water. "Not interested, man. I appreciate it, but I'm good." Marcus studied him for a moment, then shrugged. "All right. But if you change your mind, her name's Jennifer, lawyer, smart, funny, and she asked about you earlier." "How does she even know who I am?" "I may have mentioned my buddy who builds things with his hands and looks like a Carhartt commercial." "Christ." Marcus laughed and steered him back toward the party. They made the rounds, Caleb meeting people whose names he immediately forgot, making small talk about work and weather and all the safe subjects that filled the space between strangers. He was mid-conversation with someone's husband about property values when he noticed her. She stood near the windows at the far end of the room, backlit by those string lights everyone seemed to have now. Alone despite being surrounded by people. There was something about the way she held herself, perfect posture, perfect dress, perfect everything, that somehow made her look more isolated than if she'd been standing in an empty room. Victoria Hale. He knew who she was. Everyone in the city knew who she was. Hale Industries, real estate empire, Forbes lists, Her face had been on a magazine cover at the grocery store checkout just last week. Yeah, she's here, Marcus said quietly, following his gaze. My sister works with her foundation or something. Don't stare, man. She hates that. Caleb looked away. I wasn't staring. Sure, but over the next 20 minutes, as Caleb circulated through the party, he kept noticing her. Not because she was beautiful, though she was, in that untouchable way rich people seem to perfect, but because she looked like she was barely holding on. She'd smile at whoever was talking to her, nod at the right moments. But her eyes were somewhere else entirely. Someone asked her about her love life. Caleb was too far away to hear the question, but he saw her face change, just for a second. Then the smile was back, professional and empty. Another person joined the conversation, then another. They were circling her now, voices getting louder, questions coming faster. When was she going to settle down? Didn't she want a family? Was she dating anyone? What about that actor she'd been photographed with? Victoria's smile stayed fixed, but her hand tightened around her glass. Then she excused herself, polite but firm, and walked straight toward the back door. Caleb watched her slip outside onto the porch, closing the door behind her with the kind of care that suggested she was trying very hard not to slam it. He should have stayed inside, should have finished his water and found Marcus and made his excuses to leave. Emma would be at his mom's by now, probably watching movies past her bedtime. Instead, he found himself walking toward that same door. The porch was narrow, more of a balcony really, overlooking a backyard that was too dark to see much of. Victoria stood at the railing, both hands gripping it, shoulders tight. She didn't turn around when he stepped outside. I'm not good company right now, she said quietly. That makes two of us. She glanced back then, taking him in. Work boots. Flannel. The kind of worn-in tiredness that came from actual labor, not a hard day at the office. I don't think we've met, she said. Caleb Hayes, friend of the birthday boy. Victoria Hale. I know. Something flickered across her face. Not annoyance exactly, more like resignation. Right, everyone knows. An awkward silence settled between them. Inside, the party continued, laughter and music muffled through the glass door. Out here, the November air was sharp enough to sting. You didn't have to follow me, Victoria said, still facing the darkness. I didn't follow you. I needed air. In the exact same moment I did? Coincidence. She almost smiled at that. Almost. Caleb leaned against the railing, keeping a respectful distance between them. The wood was cold through his shirt. Those people in there were pretty interested in your personal life. They always are. Her voice was flat, professional, the same voice she probably used in boardrooms. It comes with the territory. Seems exhausting. It is. Another silence. This one felt a little less awkward. Victoria turned to face him fully then, and in the dim light from the house, he could see just how tired she looked. The kind of tired that makeup couldn't quite hide. Can I ask you something? She said. Sure. Do you ever feel like your whole life is just performance? Like you're playing a part that everyone expects, and you can't remember when you stopped being real? Caleb thought about Emma. About the juggling act of single parenthood, of showing up to school events and pretending he had it all figured out when most days he was making it up as he went. Yeah, he said, I know what that feels like. She studied his face like she was trying to determine if he was just saying what she wanted to hear. Whatever she saw there seemed to satisfy her. I need to ask you for a favor, Victoria said, and it's going to sound insane. Okay, I mean truly insane. You're going to think I've lost my mind. Try me. She took a breath. Let it out slowly. I need you to pretend to be my boyfriend. Caleb blinked. What? Just for tonight, just to get those people off my back. The words came faster now, like she had to get them out before she lost her nerve. Everyone in there thinks my life isn't complete because I'm not paired off with someone. They ask about it constantly. Magazine interviews, social events, family dinners. It's relentless. And tonight I can't do it anymore. So you want me to lie for you? Yes. To a room full of strangers? Yes. People who definitely know I just got here. We'll say we've been seeing each other quietly, that we wanted to keep it private. She was looking directly at him now, and there was something desperate in her eyes that made his chest tight. Please. I know it's asking a lot. I know we just met. But I am so tired of being picked apart by people who think they have a right to my personal life just because they read about me in Forbes. Caleb should have said no. Should have made some excuse and gone back inside and forgotten this whole conversation. But there was something about the way she was looking at him, like he was the first real thing she'd seen all night. "What do I have to do?" he heard himself say. Relief flooded her face. "Just stay close. Hold my hand, maybe. Let me introduce you as my partner. That's it. I promise I won't make it weird. This is already weird." "I know." She almost laughed. "I know it is, but will you do it anyway?" Caleb looked back through the glass door at the party. All those polished people with their polished lives. Then at Victoria, standing there in a dress that probably cost more than his monthly rent, asking him to help her feel less alone. "One night," he said. "That's it." "One night," she agreed. They stood there for another moment, the weight of the agreement settling between them. "We should probably get our story straight," Victoria said. "How did we meet?" "You tell me. This is your show." She thought about it. "The hardware store. 3 months ago. You were buying supplies for a job. I was there getting paint samples for a renovation project. We started talking." "You shop at hardware stores?" "I do now." A real smile this time, small but genuine. "Is that believable?" "Sure. Why not?" "And we've been seeing each other since then. Quiet dinners, long conversations. We wanted to keep it private because of the media attention that follows me." "Okay." "And we're happy. We're taking it slow, but we're happy." Caleb nodded. Simple enough. Probably wouldn't even have to say much. Just stand there and look reasonably content. Victoria held out her hand. "Ready?" He took it. Her skin was cold from the night air, but her grip was firm. "Let's do this before I change my mind," she said. They walked back inside together. The change was immediate. Conversation paused. Heads turned. Caleb felt every eye in the room land on their joined hands. Marcus appeared first, his expression cycling through confusion, surprise, and something that might have been pride. "Caleb?" "What?" "Marcus, I don't think you've officially met Victoria," Caleb said, trying to keep his voice steady. "Victoria, this is Marcus Chen, the birthday boy." "We've met briefly," Victoria said, and her whole demeanor had shifted. Gone was the woman from the porch. In her place was someone confident, composed, every inch the billionaire everyone expected. "But I don't think I've had a chance to properly wish you a happy birthday." "Thanks. Wait." Marcus looked between them. "Are you two?" Victoria squeezed Caleb's hand. "We've been seeing each other for a few months now. Caleb wanted to keep it quiet, and honestly, I appreciated the privacy." A woman Caleb didn't recognize literally gasped. "You're dating the carpenter." "I'm a Finnish carpenter," Caleb corrected, feeling his jaw tighten. "And yeah, we're together." The room erupted. Questions flew from every direction. How did they meet? How long had this been going on? Why didn't anyone know? Was it serious? Victoria handled it like a pro, feeding them the story they'd just constructed, making it sound natural. Caleb mostly stood there, trying to look like a guy who was definitely dating a billionaire and not like someone who'd agreed to this insane plan 5 minutes ago. Someone thrust a phone in their direction. "We need a photo. This is going to break the internet." "Please don't," Victoria said, firm but polite. "We're still keeping this low-key." "Oh, come on, just one." She said no. Caleb's voice came out harder than he intended. The room went quiet. The woman with the phone lowered it slowly. "Right. Sorry." Victoria's hand relaxed in his. He hadn't realized how tense she'd been. They spent the next hour navigating the party as a couple. It was surreal, standing with his arm around a woman he'd met less than 2 hours ago, accepting congratulations from strangers, playing the part of someone whose life had suddenly gotten very complicated. But the weird thing was, it worked. People stopped interrogating Victoria about her love life. The questions shifted to safer territory. How was the foundation doing? Had she seen the new development downtown? What did she think about the mayor's latest policy? She visibly relaxed. And Caleb, despite himself, started to feel less like a fraud and more like, he didn't know what. A buffer, maybe. Someone who could stand between her and all these people who wanted pieces of her. "You're good at this," Victoria murmured during a brief moment when they were alone near the bar. "At what?" "Playing the part. You almost seem comfortable." "I'm really not." She laughed quietly. "Well, you're faking it well." "Years of practice." She looked at him curiously. "What are you faking in your real life?" The question caught him off guard. He thought about Emma, about the nights he sat at the kitchen table trying to figure out how to be both parents, about the constant fear that he wasn't enough. "Having my shit together," he said finally. Victoria's expression softened. "Yeah, me too." Someone called her name from across the room. She sighed. "One more round," she said. "Then we can make our exit." "We?" "Well, you're my boyfriend now. It would look strange if we left separately." "Right. Of course." They made their way back into the crowd. More handshakes, more small talk, more performances of normalcy. Caleb was starting to feel the weight of the day, the early morning, the physical labor, the strangeness of this entire evening. He checked his watch, 11:30. Emma would be asleep by now. "You need to leave," Victoria said quietly, noticing the gesture. "I'm okay." "No, you're exhausted. I can see it." She touched his arm. "We've done enough. Let's say our goodbyes." They found Marcus near the kitchen, deep in conversation with a group of his sister's friends. "Hey, we're gonna head out," Caleb said. Marcus pulled him aside, lowering his voice. "Dude, what the hell?" "What? Victoria Hale? You've been dating Victoria Hale for 3 months and you didn't tell me?" Caleb felt his stomach twist. This was it. The moment where the lie became real, where he had to sell it to someone who actually knew him. "I wanted to keep it quiet," he said. "You know how I am about privacy." "Privacy? Man, you don't even have social media. I thought you were just anti-technology, not secretly dating one of the richest women in the state." "It's new. We're taking it slow." Marcus studied his face, and for a horrible moment, Caleb thought he'd been caught. But then Marcus broke into a grin and pulled him into a hug. "I'm happy for you, man. Seriously, you deserve something good." The guilt hit like a punch to the gut. "Thanks," Caleb managed. They said their goodbyes, Victoria gracious and warm, Caleb trying to match her energy and mostly failing. Then they walked out together into the cold November night. The valet brought Victoria's car first, some sleek black thing that probably cost more than Caleb's house. She handed the kid a tip, then turned to Caleb. "Thank you," she said. "Genuinely, you have no idea how much I needed that tonight." "It's fine." "It's not fine. It's weird. And I put you in an awkward position. And I'm sorry." She paused. "But also grateful." "You're welcome." An awkward silence settled between them. The party continued inside, but out here it was just the two of them and the sound of distant traffic. "I should probably give you my number," Victoria said, "in case anyone asks, so our stories match." "Right, good thinking." They exchanged phones, typing in numbers. Caleb's contact list was embarrassingly short. Emma, his mom, Marcus, a handful of work contacts. Victoria's probably had hundreds of entries. "Okay," she said, handing his phone back. "I guess this is good night." "Yeah." She hesitated, like she wanted to say something else. Then she just smiled, tired but genuine, and got in her car. Caleb watched her drive away, taillights disappearing into the night. Then he walked to his truck, got in, and sat there for a long minute. What the hell had he just done? His phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. "Thank you again, I owe you one." V. He stared at it, then typed back, "No problem, good luck with everything, that should have been it." One weird night, one favor for a stranger, done and forgotten. He started the truck and headed home. The house was dark when he pulled into the driveway. Small, ordinary, the kind of place that would never make it into a magazine spread. He loved it anyway. Inside, he kicked off his boots and went straight to the kitchen, made a sandwich he was too tired to eat, checked his email, stared at the pile of bills on the counter that he'd been avoiding. His phone buzzed again. "I know I said one night, but would you be willing to do this again? There's a brunch thing this weekend. Same deal. Just pretend we're together, then we go our separate ways. I'll pay you." Caleb read it twice. The smart thing would be to say no, to end this before it got more complicated. He started typing. "You don't need to pay me." 3 dots appeared. disappeared, appeared again. So that's a yes? He thought about Emma, about the way she'd asked him last week why he never went on dates like her friend's dad, about how he'd told her he was happy with just the two of them, and how she'd looked at him like she didn't quite believe it. He thought about Victoria on that porch, desperate and alone, despite being surrounded by people. One more time. That's it. Deal. I'll text you details. Thank you, Caleb. He put the phone down and rubbed his face. This was a mistake. He could feel it in his bones, but he'd already said yes. Saturday morning came too fast. Caleb dropped Emma at his mom's. She was spending the weekend there, something about a cousin's birthday party, and drove across town to the address Victoria had texted him, a restaurant he'd never heard of in a neighborhood he couldn't afford. He parked 2 blocks away and walked, feeling underdressed in his khakis and button-down. Victoria was already there, sitting at an outdoor table despite the cold, wrapped in a coat that probably cost more than his monthly mortgage. She saw him and stood, smiling. Hey. Hey. And then, because they were being watched by the 3 other people at the table, she stepped forward and kissed his cheek. Caleb froze. They hadn't discussed this. Physical affection beyond hand-holding. Sorry, she whispered. Should have warned you. It's fine. She introduced him to her friends, names and faces that blurred together. They were nice enough, asking polite questions about his work, his life. He answered honestly where he could, and vaguely where he couldn't. The brunch lasted 2 hours. Caleb picked at eggs he didn't want, sipped coffee that was surprisingly good, and watched Victoria navigate the social dynamics with practiced ease. She was different here than at the party, more relaxed. She laughed at her friends' jokes, told stories about her work, asked questions that showed she actually cared about the answers. And every so often, she'd reach over and touch his hand, or his arm. Small gestures of affection that looked natural to everyone else and felt electric to him. After brunch, they walked to where she'd parked. The others had already left. That wasn't so bad, Victoria said. Your friends seem nice. They are. They're also relentless gossips, which is why I needed you there. She pulled out her keys. Thank you again. I know this is weird. It's definitely weird. She laughed. Look, I know I keep saying one more time, but there's this gala next month for the foundation. It's a big deal, lots of press, and I really don't want to field questions about why I'm there alone. Victoria, I know I'm asking a lot, but you're good at this. And honestly, you're the first person in years who hasn't wanted something from me. Caleb looked at her, really looked, saw the exhaustion behind the polish, the loneliness in someone who was never truly alone. Okay, he said, the gala, but that's really it. Really it, I promise. She left. He walked back to his truck. This time, there were no texts afterward, no follow-ups, just silence. 3 days passed, then a week. Caleb went back to work, back to his normal routine. Emma came home from his mom's with stories about the birthday party. They made dinner together, watched a movie, fell into their usual rhythm. He almost convinced himself the whole thing had been a strange dream. Then his phone rang. Unknown number. Hello? Caleb, it's Victoria. Do you have a minute? He stepped out of the kitchen, away from where Emma was doing homework at the table. What's up? So there's been a development. Someone at the brunch posted a photo of us to Instagram. It's gotten attention. What kind of attention? The kind where gossip sites are calling me for confirmation. And my publicist is having a small meltdown. Caleb's stomach dropped. Shit. Yeah, so I have 2 options. Either I confirm that we're dating, which means we need to keep this going for a while until the attention dies down. Or I deny it, which makes me look like a liar, and you look like, I don't know, an opportunist or something. What do you want to do? Silence on the other end. Then, honestly, I want to keep going. This has been the most peaceful few weeks I've had in years. Nobody asking about my personal life because they think they already know. It's been nice. Caleb thought about what it would mean. More fake dates, more lies, more chances for everything to blow up in his face. There's something I need to tell you first, he said. Okay, I have a daughter, Emma. She's 12. If we're going to do this, really do this, she's going to find out. And I'm not dragging her into something without knowing what I'm getting into. Another pause. Does she live with you? Yeah, full time. Her mom's not in the picture. That must be hard. It is. But she's the most important thing in my life. So if this is going to continue, even as a fake thing, she needs to be okay with it. That's fair, more than fair. Victoria's voice softened. For what it's worth, I think you're a good dad. I can tell. You barely know me. I know enough. They talked for another 20 minutes, working out the details. They'd confirm they were dating, keep up appearances for a few months until the media lost interest. Then they'd stage a quiet, mutual breakup. Simple, controlled, an ending built into the beginning. I'll make it worth your while, Victoria said. Anything you need? I don't want your money. Caleb, I mean it. This isn't about money. Then what is it about? He didn't have a good answer for that. Maybe it was about helping someone who needed help. Maybe it was about proving to himself that he could be something other than just Emma's dad. Maybe it was just curiosity about what it would be like to step into a world completely different from his own. I guess we'll find out, he said. That night he sat Emma down and explained. Not everything. He kept it simple, age-appropriate. He'd met someone. They were dating. She was going to be around sometimes. Emma's eyes went wide. Is she nice? Yeah, she's nice. What's her name? Victoria. That's a pretty name. Emma paused. Are you happy, Dad? The question hit him harder than it should have. I'm getting there, he said. She smiled and hugged him, and Caleb felt the weight of the lie settle deeper into his chest. This was going to get complicated. The Foundation Gala was exactly the kind of event Caleb had spent his entire adult life avoiding. Crystal chandeliers, champagne towers, men in tuxedos that fit like they were born wearing them. He stood in front of his bathroom mirror, struggling with a bow tie Victoria's assistant had messengered over that morning, and seriously considered faking food poisoning. Dad, you look weird. Emma appeared in the doorway, still in her pajamas, even though it was almost noon. Saturday meant no rush, no schedule. Just the two of them usually. Thanks, kid. Real confidence booster. No, I mean like fancy weird. When do you ever wear a tux? Never. This is a first. He gave up on the bow tie and let it hang loose around his neck. How do I look? Emma tilted her head, considering. Like someone told you to dress up as a secret agent, but you're not sure you got the assignment right. Accurate. She came closer, reaching up to fix his collar. At 12, she was almost to his shoulder now. When had that happened? Is Victoria going to be there? It's her event, so yeah. Are you nervous? More than he wanted to admit. Little bit. You'll be fine, Dad. Just don't do that thing where you talk about work stuff when you're uncomfortable. I don't do that. Emma gave him a look that said she knew better. She'd inherited that look from her mother, the ability to see straight through his bullshit with a single glance. Okay, maybe I do that sometimes, he conceded. His phone buzzed. A text from Victoria. Cars downstairs. No pressure, but there are already photographers outside my building. Fair warning. That's my cue, Caleb said, grabbing his jacket. Grandma's picking you up at 1, right? Yep, we're going to make cookies. Save me some? Depends on how many Instagram photos you end up in tonight. He stopped. What? Emma shrugged, suddenly very interested in her phone. Just saying, people at school have been talking. Talking about what? About how my dad is dating Victoria Hale. Madison's mom showed her a picture from that brunch thing. She said you guys looked cute. The way she said cute made it clear what she thought of the whole situation. Caleb's stomach dropped. He'd known this would happen eventually, had tried to prepare for it, but knowing and experiencing were different things. Are people being weird about it? Nah, mostly they just think it's cool. Justin asked if I could get him her autograph, which is dumb because she's not famous, she's just rich. Emma? I'm kidding, Dad. Relax. She looked up at him then, and her expression was more serious. Are you happy? Like, actually? There it was again, that question. The honest answer was complicated. He barely knew Victoria outside of their carefully orchestrated public appearances. But there was something there, some connection he couldn't quite name. The texts had started slow. Just logistics at first, times, places, what to wear. Then they'd gotten longer. She'd ask about his day. He'd ask about hers. Nothing deep, but consistent, present. I'm figuring it out, he said finally. Emma nodded like that was good enough. Okay, but if she's mean to you, I'll fight her. Noted. I'm serious. I don't care how much money she has. Caleb pulled her into a hug. This kid who was growing up too fast and still somehow managed to worry about him. I love you. You know that, right? Yeah, Dad. I know. She squeezed back. Now go. Your fancy girlfriend is waiting. The town car was exactly as ostentatious as Caleb had feared. Black, sleek, windows tinted so dark he couldn't see inside. The driver, an older guy in a suit, opened the door without a word. Victoria sat in the back, scrolling through her phone, and when she looked up, something in her expression shifted. Wow, she said. Too much? No, not at all. You look… She paused, seemed to reconsider whatever she was about to say. You clean up well. So do you. Understatement. She wore a dress that was probably worth more than his truck. Dark blue, simple, but elegant in a way he couldn't articulate. Her hair was pulled back, makeup subtle. She looked like she belonged on a red carpet. Caleb felt like a kid playing dress-up. The driver pulled into traffic and Victoria set her phone aside. Okay, quick briefing. This is a big event, around 300 people. Press will be there, lots of photos. We'll do the red carpet together, which will probably feel weird, but just smile and keep moving. Inside there's a cocktail hour, then dinner, then speeches and an auction. Auction? For the foundation. We raise money for arts education programs. It's actually a good cause, not just rich people patting themselves on the back. I didn't think that. Most people do. She pulled out a compact, checking her reflection even though she looked perfect. A nervous habit, maybe. There are going to be a lot of questions tonight. About us. About how serious we are. I've been dodging them for weeks, but at some point we need to have answers ready. What kind of answers? The kind that sound real but don't commit us to anything specific. She snapped the compact shut. We're taking things slow. Enjoying getting to know each other. Yes, it's different, our backgrounds, our lives, but that's part of what makes it interesting. We're not rushing into anything, but we're both happy. Caleb repeated it in his head, trying to make it sound natural. Okay, I can do that. And if anyone asks about Emma, they know about Emma? Your friend Marcus mentioned her to someone who mentioned her to someone else. It's a small world in this tax bracket. Victoria's expression softened. I'm sorry. I know you wanted to keep her out of this. It's fine. She already knows anyway. Kids at school have been talking. How's she handling it? Better than I am, probably. Victoria smiled at that. A real one, not the polished version she wore for cameras. She sounds tough. She is. They rode in silence for a moment. Outside, the city slipped past, familiar streets that somehow looked different from inside a town car. Cleaner, more distant. Can I ask you something? Victoria said. Sure. Why did you say yes to all of this? You didn't have to keep going after that first night. Caleb considered the question. He'd been asking himself the same thing for weeks now. Honestly, I'm not completely sure. Maybe because you looked like you needed help. Maybe because I was curious. Maybe because my life had gotten so small and predictable that this felt like, I don't know, an adventure. An adventure, Victoria repeated. That's one way to describe pretending to date someone for public consumption. What would you call it? She thought about it. A necessary fiction. A way to buy myself some breathing room. She paused. But also maybe an adventure. Yeah. The venue was a converted warehouse in the arts district, all exposed brick and industrial lighting, trying very hard to look casual, despite the obvious money that had gone into it. The car pulled up to a red carpet that was actually red, flanked by photographers with cameras already flashing. Caleb felt his throat tighten. Hey! Victoria's hand found his. Just stay close to me. Smile. Don't look directly at the cameras because the flashes will blind you. And if anyone asks you a question, you don't have to answer. Just keep walking. That's it? That's it. The driver opened the door. Sound rushed in, clicking cameras, shouted questions, the general chaos of people trying to get attention. Victoria stepped out first and the noise doubled. She turned back, offering her hand to help Caleb out. The cameras went insane. Victoria, over here! Who's your date? Is this the carpenter boyfriend? How long have you been together? Caleb kept his eyes on Victoria, using her as an anchor. She smiled at the cameras with practiced ease, positioning them so the photographers could get their shots. Her hand never left his. Victoria, is it serious? She leaned closer to Caleb, and for the cameras it probably looked intimate. To him, it felt like a lifeline. Just smile and breathe, she whispered. You're doing great. They made it through the gauntlet in less than 5 minutes, but it felt like an hour. Inside, the venue was already crowded. People in formal wear clustered in groups, holding champagne flutes and laughing at jokes that probably weren't that funny. Victoria's shoulders dropped half an inch. Relaxing, finally. You survived, she said. Barely. A waiter appeared with champagne. Victoria took 2 glasses, handing one to Caleb. He accepted it, but didn't drink. He needed to stay sharp tonight. They circulated through the crowd. Victoria introduced him to what felt like hundreds of people, donors, board members, local politicians. Caleb shook hands and made small talk, falling into a rhythm that was almost comfortable. These were the social skills you learned as a contractor, making clients feel heard and important. So you're the mysterious boyfriend, said a woman whose name Caleb had already forgotten. She was probably 60, dripping in diamonds that looked real. I have to say, Victoria, you kept this one under wraps. I like my privacy, Victoria said smoothly. And you're a carpenter? How wonderfully grounded. The way she said it made grounded sound like a polite substitute for something less flattering. Finnish carpenter, Caleb corrected. Custom work, mostly. Cabinets, built-ins, that kind of thing. How fascinating. And how did you two meet? Victoria launched into their practice story. The hardware store, the paint samples, the conversation that turned into coffee, that turned into something more. She told it so naturally that Caleb almost believed it himself. The woman listened with the kind of smile that didn't reach her eyes. Well, how lovely. You make quite an unusual pair. Thank you, Victoria said, and her tone suggested the conversation was over. They moved on. More introductions, more questions, more performances of normalcy. Caleb started to feel the fatigue setting in, not physical, but mental. The constant effort of being someone he wasn't. During dinner, he sat next to Victoria at a table full of Foundation board members. The food was elaborate, tiny portions arranged like art. He ate mechanically, contributing to conversations when spoken to, but mostly just observing. Victoria was different here than she'd been in the car. More formal, more careful. She laughed at the right moments, asked interested questions, steered conversations with subtle skill. Watching her work was like watching a master craftsman, every word chosen deliberately, every gesture calculated for effect. It was impressive. It was also exhausting to witness. Halfway through the main course, she excused herself to use the restroom. Caleb stayed at the table, trying to look engaged in a conversation about tax policy that he barely understood. His phone buzzed. A text from Emma. Grandma wants to know if you're having fun. I told her probably not. He smiled and typed back. You're right. Food's good, though. Take a picture. I want to see how fancy it is. He snapped a quick photo of his plate, some kind of fish with sauce drizzled in a spiral pattern, and sent it. Emma's response came immediately. That's not even enough food. You're going to be hungry later, probably. Want me to save you some real dinner? Yeah, thanks, kid. He pocketed his phone just as Victoria returned. She slid back into her seat, and under the table, her hand found his knee. A brief squeeze. Reassurance or gratitude, he wasn't sure which. The speeches started after dessert. The foundation director talked about their programs, showed a video of kids learning to paint and dance and make music. It was genuinely moving, watching these kids light up when given the tools to create something. Then Victoria took the stage. She transformed up there. Gone was the careful, controlled version from the table. Instead, she spoke with passion about why arts education mattered, about her own childhood and how painting had been her escape when everything else felt overwhelming. She talked about wanting to give that same escape to kids who needed it. Caleb found himself leaning forward, drawn in despite himself. This was the real Victoria, not the polished billionaire or the woman who needed a fake boyfriend to keep the press at bay. This was someone who actually gave a damn about something beyond herself. The auction followed. Ridiculous amounts of money for vacation packages and artwork and experiences Caleb couldn't imagine wanting. A weekend in Napa, a private concert, a painting that looked like someone had thrown paint at a canvas and called it art. Do you want to bid on anything? Victoria asked quietly. With what money? She smiled. I'm offering. I'm good. Thanks. The final item was a dinner with Victoria herself. Private chef, exclusive venue, one night for 12 people. The bidding started at 5,000 and climbed quickly. 10,000, 15, 25. 30,000, called out a man Caleb recognized from earlier, investment banker or something. Victoria's jaw tightened slightly. 35, countered a woman in red. It ended at $42,000 for dinner. Caleb tried to wrap his head around that kind of money and couldn't. After the auction, the crowd began to thin. Victoria was pulled into a dozen different conversations, thanking donors, posing for photos with board members, accepting congratulations on the event's success. Caleb stayed close but separate, watching her work. It was past 11 when they finally made it back to the car. Victoria collapsed into the seat like a puppet with cut strings. Thank God that's over, she breathed. You were great up there. The speech. You think so? Yeah, you actually sounded like you cared. She looked at him, and something flickered across her face. I do care. That's the weird part. I spend so much time pretending that when I get to do something real, it almost feels like another performance. The car pulled into traffic. Victoria kicked off her heels, wincing. These shoes are torture devices, she muttered. Why wear them? Because they make my legs look good, and in this world, that matters. She rubbed her feet. I know how that sounds, shallow, but image is currency when you're trying to convince rich people to part with their money. I wasn't judging. Everyone judges. It's fine. I'm used to it. They drove in silence for a while. Caleb watched the city lights blur past, thinking about Emma's text, about the kids in that video learning to paint, about Victoria on stage talking about escape. Can I ask you something? He said. Sure. When did this become your life? The galas and the foundation and all of it. Victoria was quiet for a long moment. My father started the company, built it from nothing into something massive. When he died, I was 23, fresh out of business school, completely unprepared. Everyone expected me to sell, to take the money and live quietly somewhere. Instead, I took over. Why? Because he built something that mattered, and I wasn't going to let it disappear just because I was young and scared. She stared out the window. The foundation came later, after I realized that making money wasn't actually fulfilling any part of me that needed filling. So you do this to feel like you're making a difference. I do this because if I don't, all I am is someone who inherited wealth and did nothing meaningful with it. She looked at him. What about you? Why carpentry? Honest answer, it's what I'm good at. I like building things. Seeing something go from raw materials to finished product. It's tangible, real. No deeper meaning than that? Does there need to be? Victoria smiled. No, I guess not. The car stopped outside Caleb's house. Small, ordinary, the porch light on because he'd remembered to set the timer before leaving. Thank you for tonight, Victoria said. I know it was a lot. It was. He paused, hand on the door. But it wasn't terrible. High praise. I mean it. You're good at what you do. It's impressive. Something in her expression shifted, softened. That means more than you know. He should have said goodnight and gotten out. Should have let the evening end there, clean and simple. Instead, he heard himself say, Do you want to come in? Just for a bit? Emma's at my mom's, and I was going to make some actual food because that dinner was basically expensive air. Victoria blinked. You're inviting me in? If you want, no pressure. Just thought you might want to decompress somewhere that isn't a car or a public event. She considered it, then nodded. Yeah, okay. He told the driver he'd make sure she got home safely. The man looked skeptical but didn't argue. Inside, the house felt smaller with Victoria in it. She stood in the living room, taking in the worn couch, the TV that was a generation behind, the school artwork magneted to the fridge. This is nice, she said, and she sounded like she meant it. It's nothing special. That's what makes it nice. It feels lived in, real. Caleb went to the kitchen and started pulling out ingredients. Grilled cheese, okay? It's kind of my specialty. Perfect. She sat at the kitchen table watching him work. He buttered bread, sliced cheese, heated the pan. Simple, familiar motions. You're good at that, Victoria observed. It's grilled cheese, not exactly complicated. Still, you move like you know what you're doing. 12 years of single parenthood will do that. He plated the sandwiches, cut them diagonally because that's how Emma liked them, and brought them to the table. Victoria took a bite and closed her eyes. "Oh my God," she said. "What?" "This is the best thing I've eaten all night. It's grilled cheese. It's food I can actually taste. Do you know how long it's been since I had something this simple and good?" They ate in comfortable silence. Caleb grabbed 2 beers from the fridge, and Victoria accepted one without comment. "Can I ask you something now?" she said. "Fair's fair." "Emma's mom, what happened there?" Caleb took a long drink. "She left when Emma was 6 months old. Postpartum depression, we thought at first. But it was more than that. She couldn't handle it. Motherhood, the responsibility, the complete loss of freedom. One day I came home from work and she was gone. Left a note saying she was sorry, that she couldn't do it anymore." Jesus. "Yeah, I haven't heard from her since. She sends money sometimes through a lawyer, but that's it." That must have been terrifying. It was, but also clarifying. Suddenly it was just me and Emma, and I could either fall apart or figure it out. So I figured it out. Victoria was quiet for a moment. "You're a good dad, Caleb. I hope you know that." "I'm trying to be." "That's more than a lot of people can say." She finished her beer, set the bottle down carefully. "I should probably get going. It's late. Yeah, I'll call you a car." "Thanks." They stood there in his small kitchen, and the space between them felt charged with something Caleb couldn't name. Not attraction exactly, though there was that too. More like recognition. 2 people who'd spent so long performing that they'd almost forgotten what it felt like to just be. "Tonight was good," Victoria said. "Not just the gala. This. Talking." "Yeah, it was." The car arrived 15 minutes later. Caleb walked her out, and on the porch, she turned to face him. "Same time next week? There's a thing at the museum." "Another performance?" "Unfortunately." She paused. "Unless you want to actually go. Like, as a real date. No cameras, no crowd. Just 2 people looking at art." Caleb's heart did something complicated in his chest. "Is that a good idea?" "Probably not, but I'm asking anyway." He thought about Emma's question. "Are you happy, Dad?" He thought about Victoria on that porch 6 weeks ago, desperate and alone. He thought about how easy it had become to text her, to hear her voice, to exist in her orbit. "Okay," he said. "A real date." Victoria smiled. "I'll text you." She got in the car and drove away. Caleb stood on his porch, watching the taillights disappear, and wondered what the hell he'd just agreed to. The weeks that followed blurred together in a way that felt both surreal and strangely natural. The museum date turned into coffee. Coffee turned into a walk through the park. The walk turned into dinner at a place with actual privacy, where Victoria could eat without worrying about photographers. They texted constantly now. Good morning messages and random thoughts and photos of mundane things. Victoria sent him a picture of a disastrous attempt at making pasta from scratch. He sent her a video of Emma's school play, which Victoria watched and then asked detailed questions about. The boundaries kept shifting. What had started as a transaction became something harder to define. Emma met Victoria 3 weeks after the gala. Caleb had tried to prepare both of them, but nothing could really prepare a 12-year-old for meeting a billionaire, or a billionaire for meeting a brutally honest preteen. They met at a casual restaurant, pizza, the kind of place where Victoria stood out but tried hard not to. Emma was polite but reserved, answering questions without offering much detail. Then Victoria asked about the art project Emma had mentioned to Caleb, and something shifted. Emma lit up, describing her plans for this elaborate mixed-media piece about climate change. Victoria listened like it was the most important thing she'd heard all week. "That sounds incredible," Victoria said. "Would you want to come to the Foundation studio sometime? We have supplies and space, and I think you'd love it." Emma looked at Caleb, asking permission without words. He nodded. "Yeah," Emma said, that would be cool." On the drive home, Emma was quiet until Caleb couldn't take it anymore. "So?" he asked. "She's not what I expected." "What did you expect?" "I don't know. Someone snobby, maybe, but she's just normal, kind of, in a weird rich person way." "Is that a good thing?" Emma shrugged. "I guess. She seems to make you happy. That's good." "We're just dating, Em. It's not—" "Dad?" Emma gave him that look again. You text her like 50 times a day. You smile at your phone. It's gross and also kind of nice. Heat crept up Caleb's neck. I don't text her 50 times a day. You literally do. I counted yesterday, 47. Since when are you monitoring my texts? Since you started acting weird. Emma's expression turned more serious. I like her, okay? I was worried she'd be fake or mean, but she's not. So if you're happy, I'm happy. Caleb's throat tightened. Thanks, kid. But if she breaks your heart, I'm going to slash her tires. Emma, I'm kidding. Mostly. That night, after Emma was asleep, Caleb sat on his back porch with a beer and his phone. He scrolled through his messages with Victoria. Hundreds of them now, accumulating like evidence of something he was afraid to name. His thumbs hovered over the keyboard. Then he typed, Emma likes you. The response came quickly. Good. I like her too. She's smart and funny and doesn't take any shit. Wonder where she gets that from. Not from me. I take plenty of shit. You sell yourself short. It's a gift. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Can I tell you something? Sure. This was supposed to be simple, a favor, a performance, but somewhere along the way it stopped feeling fake. Caleb stared at the message, his heart hammering. Yeah, I know. What do we do about that? He thought about his life before Victoria. Small, predictable, safe. He thought about the risks involved in letting this become real, the scrutiny, the pressure, the inevitable complications. Then he thought about Victoria eating grilled cheese at his kitchen table, laughing at his terrible jokes, asking about Emma's art project like it mattered. I guess we stopped pretending. The phone rang immediately. He answered. Hi, Victoria said, and her voice was smaller than he'd ever heard it. Hi, I'm scared. Yeah, me too. This could go badly. We're from completely different worlds. The press will eviscerate us. My board will have opinions. Your life will change in ways you can't predict. I know. So why does it feel like the right thing anyway? Caleb leaned back in his chair, staring up at the stars barely visible through the light pollution. Because maybe sometimes the right thing is also the scary thing. That's very philosophical for a carpenter. I have hidden depths. She laughed, soft and genuine. Can I see you tomorrow? I have Emma until 6. After that, then? We can go somewhere. Or nowhere. I don't care. I just want to see you. Okay. Okay. They stayed on the phone for another hour, talking about nothing and everything. When Caleb finally hung up and went inside, he felt lighter than he had in years. Also terrified, but mostly lighter. The shift from fake to real was both gradual and sudden. There was no official announcement, no dramatic moment, just a slow accumulation of real moments that replaced the performed ones. Victoria started spending time at the house, not just for planned dates, but random weaknesses. She'd show up after work, still in her professional armor, and help Emma with homework. Or she'd bring takeout and they'd eat on the couch watching whatever show Emma was obsessed with that week. Caleb learned her coffee order. Victoria learned where he kept the good snacks. Emma learned that Victoria could be bribed into watching horror movies that Caleb refused to sit through. It was domestic in a way that should have felt strange, but instead felt inevitable. 2 months after the gala, Marcus cornered Caleb at a job site. Okay, spill, Marcus said, handing him a coffee. Spill what? Don't play dumb. You and Victoria. You guys are actually together now, right? Like, for real? Caleb took a long drink, buying time. Yeah, for real. How did that happen? Last I heard, you were taking things slow. We were. Then we weren't. Marcus studied his face. You're happy. I am. Good. You deserve it, man. Marcus paused. But also, what the hell? How does this even work? She's got security and assistants, and you're over here covered in drywall dust. I don't know. We're figuring it out. And they were. It wasn't smooth. Victoria's world kept intruding. Last-minute business trips, social obligations, the ever-present photographers. Caleb's world was harder for her to navigate. The early mornings, the physical exhaustion, the constant juggling of single parenthood. But they tried. Victoria rearranged her schedule to make Emma's art show. Caleb wore another tux to a charity dinner without complaining. They met in the middle, or tried to. The first real fight happened on a Tuesday. Caleb had been working a difficult job. A client who kept changing their mind, deadlines shifting, stress mounting. He came home exhausted to find Victoria already there with Emma, both of them laughing over some private joke. "Hey," Victoria said, smiling, "we made dinner. Well, we ordered it, but same thing." "Great, thanks." "You okay?" "Fine, just tired." But he wasn't fine. He was irritable and feeling like an outsider in his own house. Victoria had picked up Emma from school, something they'd discussed but that still felt weird. She'd helped with homework, made decisions about dinner. Small things, helpful things, but they gnawed at him anyway. After Emma went to bed, Victoria found him in the kitchen, staring at nothing. "Talk to me," she said. "About what?" "About why you've barely said 2 words to me all night." "I'm just tired." "Bullshit." Her voice was sharp now. "What's actually wrong?" And there it was, the thing he'd been avoiding naming. "You can't just waltz in here and take over." Victoria recoiled like he'd slapped her. "Take over? I was trying to help." "I know, but she's my daughter. This is my life, and sometimes it feels like you're trying to rewrite it into something that fits better with yours." "That's not fair, isn't it? You show up when it's convenient. You get to be the fun one while I'm stuck being the parent who actually has to enforce rules and deal with the hard parts." Victoria's eyes flashed. "You think my life is convenient? You think I don't have to bend over backwards to make time for you and Emma? I rearranged 3 meetings today to pick her up from school. I have a company to run, Caleb. 1,000 people depending on me. But I'm here anyway because I care about you both. I didn't ask you to do that." "No, you didn't. Because you won't ask for anything. You just suffer in silence and resent people for trying to help." The words hit like a physical blow. "That's not true." "Isn't it?" She grabbed her bag. "Maybe this was a mistake. Maybe we're too different." "Victoria, I should go." She left. The door closed with a quiet click that felt louder than a slam. Caleb stood in his empty kitchen, fury and regret warring in his chest. He'd been an ass. He knew it even as the words were leaving his mouth. But the fear underneath, the terror of becoming dependent on someone who could leave, that was real too. He didn't text her. Neither did she. 2 days of silence stretched into 3. Emma noticed, of course. "Did you guys break up?" she asked over breakfast. "No, we just had a fight." "About what?" "Complicated stuff." Emma set down her spoon. "Dad, you're allowed to let people help you. You know that, right?" "I know." "Do you? Because sometimes it seems like you think you have to do everything yourself, like asking for help makes you weak or something." When had his daughter gotten so perceptive? "I'll fix it," he said. "Good, because I like her, and you're less grumpy when she's around." That night, Caleb drove to Victoria's building. The doorman recognized him now, waving him through without question. He took the elevator to the penthouse, his heart hammering the whole way up. Victoria opened the door, surprise clear on her face. "Hi," Caleb said. "Hi. Can I come in?" She stepped aside. The penthouse was massive, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, furniture that looked like art, everything pristine. He'd been here twice before and it still felt like a museum. "I'm sorry," they both said at the same time. That broke the tension. Victoria almost smiled. "You first," she said. "I was an ass. You were trying to help, and I made it about my own insecurity. That wasn't fair." He took a breath. "I'm not used to this. Letting someone in, trusting that they'll stay. And when you picked up Emma and made dinner, it felt good and terrifying at the same time, and I handled it badly." Victoria was quiet for a moment. "I'm sorry too. I didn't think about how it would feel from your perspective. I just saw a way to help and jumped in without asking if you wanted me to." "I did want you to. That's the scary part." She crossed the distance between them, and suddenly they were standing close enough that he could see the exhaustion in her eyes, the vulnerability she usually kept hidden. "I don't know how to do this," Victoria said quietly. "I've never let anyone this close before, and I keep waiting for you to realize that I'm too much work, too complicated, and leave." "I'm not going anywhere." "How can you know that?" "Because I'm choosing to stay, right now. That's all we've got." Victoria's eyes were bright. She stepped into his arms, and Caleb held her, this powerful woman who ran an empire but somehow needed him to tell her she was worth staying for. "We're a mess," she murmured against his chest. Yeah, but we're figuring it out. They stood there for a long time, holding each other in her perfect penthouse. Two people from different worlds trying to build something real in the space between them. That night in the penthouse shifted something fundamental between them. The fight had cracked open a truth neither of them had been ready to face. This thing between them was real, messy, and terrifying in ways that had nothing to do with cameras or public perception. The next morning, Caleb woke up on Victoria's couch, with a blanket he didn't remember grabbing draped over him. Sunlight poured through those massive windows, turning the city below into something that looked painted. He could hear movement in the kitchen, the hiss of an espresso machine, the clink of mugs. Victoria appeared around the corner, still in the silk pajamas she'd changed into last night, hair pulled back in a messy knot. She looked younger like this, more accessible. "Coffee?" she offered. "Please." She brought over 2 mugs, settling onto the opposite end of the couch. They sat in silence for a moment, both nursing their drinks, both clearly uncertain how to navigate this new territory they'd stumbled into. "I called in sick today," Victoria said finally. Caleb nearly choked on his coffee. "You did what?" "Called in sick. Told my assistant I had food poisoning and to cancel everything." "Do you even get sick days?" "Technically, no. But I own the company, so—" She shrugged. "I figured we could both use a day to just be. No work, no obligations. Unless you have a job?" "Not until tomorrow." He studied her face. "Are you sure about this?" "No, but I'm doing it anyway." They spent the day in ways that felt almost aggressively normal. Victoria made breakfast, scrambled eggs that were slightly overdone, but edible. They watched a documentary about deep-sea creatures that neither of them particularly cared about, but that filled the comfortable silence. Around noon, they walked to a deli 3 blocks away, Victoria in sunglasses and a baseball cap, trying to be anonymous. "Does that actually work?" Caleb asked, watching her attempt to blend in while wearing a coat that probably cost $5,000. "Sometimes. If I'm lucky." They weren't lucky. A teenager recognized her halfway through their sandwiches, phone already out and recording. "Oh my God, Victoria Hale! Can I get a photo?" Victoria's smile was automatic, practiced. "Of course." The girl squeezed in next to her, snapped several selfies, then noticed Caleb. "Is this your boyfriend, the carpenter?" "He is," Victoria said, and the ease in her voice made Caleb's chest tight. "You guys are so cute together, like relationship goals." After the girl left, Victoria slumped back in her seat. "Sorry, that happens." "It's fine." "It's not, but thanks for saying so." She picked at her sandwich. "Does it bother you? The attention?" "Honestly? Yeah, but not enough to walk away." Something flickered in her eyes, relief maybe, or gratitude. They walked back slowly, taking side streets, avoiding the main drags where more people might recognize her. Victoria pointed out buildings she'd worked on, developments her company had funded. Caleb noticed details she'd never see. The craftsmanship in an old doorway, the way light hit brick at certain angles. "You see the world differently than I do," Victoria observed. "Different how?" "I see investments and potential and market value. You see, I don't know, the actual things themselves. Someone has to." Back at the penthouse, they ordered takeout and ate sprawled on the floor because the formal dining table felt too serious. Victoria told him about growing up with a father who worked constantly, who built an empire but missed most of her childhood. Caleb told her about his own dad, who died when he was 19, who taught him everything he knew about carpentry, but nothing about how to be a husband or father. "We're both kind of making this up as we go, aren't we?" Victoria said. "Pretty much. That should be more terrifying than it is. Give it time." She laughed, and the sound filled the too large space in a way that made it feel smaller, more human. Around 10, Caleb's phone rang. Emma. "Hey, kid." "Dad, where are you? Grandma said you didn't come home last night." Caleb glanced at Victoria, who was pretending not to listen while obviously listening. "I'm at Victoria's. We had some stuff to talk through." "Did you fix your fight?" "Yeah, we did." "Good. Can you bring her to my art show Friday? It's the one at the Foundation Studio. She said she'd come, but I wanted to make sure." Victoria was already nodding before he could ask. "She'll be there," Caleb confirmed. "Cool. Love you." "Love you too." He hung up and found Victoria watching him with an expression he couldn't quite read. "What?" he asked. Nothing, just the way you are with her. It's nice. She's my kid. Of course I'm nice to her. You'd be surprised how many parents aren't. Victoria set her wine glass down. My father loved me, I think. But he didn't really know how to show it. Everything was about the business, about legacy. I was just another asset to manage. That's sad. It is. But it also made me who I am, so I can't regret it entirely. She paused. Emma's lucky to have you. I'm lucky to have her. They stayed up talking until past midnight, the city lights glittering below them like a promise of something they couldn't quite name. When Caleb finally left around 2, Victoria walked him to the door, and they stood there in that awkward space between good night and something more. Thank you for today, she said. Thank you for playing hooky. I should do it more often. You really should. Victoria stepped closer, and Caleb's breath caught. They'd been physically close before, holding hands for cameras, his arm around her at events. But this was different. This was a choice, not a performance. Can I kiss you? She asked quietly. His heart hammered. Yeah. She rose on her toes and pressed her lips to his. Soft, tentative, like she was asking a question he didn't have words to answer. Caleb's hand found her waist, pulling her closer, and the kiss deepened into something that felt like falling and finding solid ground at the same time. When they pulled apart, Victoria's eyes were wide, her breathing unsteady. Oh, she said. Yeah. Yeah. She laughed, slightly breathless. Very articulate, both of us. Give me a break. I'm out of practice. Me too. She touched his face, thumb brushing his jaw. We're really doing this. Looks like it. I'm still scared. Me too. But less scared than I was yesterday. Same. He kissed her again because he could, because she'd asked if he wanted to, and he really, really did. This time it was easier, more natural, like something they'd been doing for years instead of minutes. When he finally made it home at 3 a.m, Caleb lay in his own bed staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment. The fights and the reconciliation and the kiss that had changed everything. He felt like a teenager, giddy and terrified and completely out of his depth. His phone buzzed. Thank you for today, for all of it. Sleep well. V, you too. I'm not sure I will. I keep thinking about kissing you. Heat flooded through him. Good to know I'm not the only one. Not even close. He smiled in the darkness of his bedroom, this ordinary space that suddenly felt charged with possibility. The art show Friday was packed with kids and parents and the kind of creative chaos that made Victoria visibly uncomfortable at first. She showed up in jeans and a sweater, clearly trying to dress down, but she still stood out. Money had a way of announcing itself even when you tried to hide it. Emma found them immediately, grabbing Victoria's hand and pulling her toward her piece. Okay, so I know it's not finished yet, but I wanted to show you the progress, Emma said, talking fast the way she did when she was nervous and excited at once. The piece was a mixed media collage, photographs and paint, and found objects arranged into a statement about climate change and generational responsibility. It was raw and angry and incredibly mature for a 12-year-old. Emma, Victoria breathed, this is extraordinary. You think so? I know so. The composition, the message, the use of materials, this is professional level work. Emma's face flushed with pride. Thanks. Dad helped me mount some of it, but the concept is all mine. I can tell. Victoria crouched to examine a detail, genuinely engaged in a way Caleb recognized from that first gala speech. This was Victoria caring about something real. Have you thought about submitting this to the youth showcase next month? There's a youth showcase? There is. And you should absolutely enter. I'll get you the information. Caleb watched them together. His daughter and this woman who'd stumbled into his life 6 months ago through a lie that had somehow become the truest thing he had. Emma was gesturing animatedly, explaining her process, and Victoria was listening like every word mattered. Marcus appeared at his elbow. Man, she's good with kids. Yeah. You look happy. Like actually happy, not just okay. Caleb met his friend's eyes. I am. Good. You deserve it. Marcus paused. Although I gotta say, when you told me you were dating Victoria Hale, I thought maybe you'd hit your head or something. But seeing you two together, it works somehow. Somehow, Caleb echoed. After the show, they went for ice cream, all three of them, Emma between them on the sidewalk, talking about art and school and the new horror movie she wanted to watch. Victoria asked questions and offered opinions and laughed at Emma's jokes. And it felt so desperately normal that Caleb had to remind himself this was his life now. Later, after they dropped Emma at his mom's for a sleepover, Victoria and Caleb drove out to a park on the edge of the city. It was nearly 11, the place deserted except for the distant sound of traffic. They sat on a picnic table, shoulders touching, looking out at the darkness punctuated by streetlights. "I like your kid," Victoria said. "She likes you too." "How do you know?" "Because she threatened to slash your tires if you broke my heart." "That's Emma, for I approve." Victoria laughed. "That's oddly sweet." "That's Emma." They sat in comfortable silence for a while. Caleb had learned that silence with Victoria wasn't awkward. It was space to breathe, to just exist without performance. "Can I ask you something?" Victoria said finally. "Always." "When did you know that this wasn't fake anymore?" Caleb thought about it. Probably that first real date. The museum. When you told me about your dad and I realized you'd never told anyone else that story. That felt real. For me, it was the grilled cheese. The grilled cheese? You invited me into your home, made me something simple and good, and didn't expect anything in return. Nobody does that in my world. Everything's transactional, but you just gave. She turned to face him. It terrified me. Why? Because I didn't know what to do with it. Kindness without agenda, care without conditions. I didn't have a framework for that. And now? Now I'm trying to build one. Her hand found his in the darkness. With you, if you'll let me. Victoria, I know it's fast. I know we're still figuring this out, but I need you to know that this isn't casual for me anymore. You're not casual. Emma's not casual. This whole thing has become the realest part of my life, and that's both wonderful and absolutely terrifying. Caleb's throat tightened. I feel the same way. You do? Yeah, I kept telling myself it was just helping you out, just seeing where things went. But somewhere along the way, I stopped pretending. He squeezed her hand. This is real for me too. Scary, complicated, probably going to blow up in our faces real. Victoria smiled, but her eyes were bright. We're a disaster. Completely. So what do we do about it? I think we stop hedging. Stop treating this like it's temporary. We're either in or we're out. I'm in, Victoria said immediately. Are you? Caleb looked at her. This brilliant, broken, beautiful woman who'd asked a stranger to pretend to love her and somehow made it real. He thought about all the reasons this shouldn't work, all the ways it could fall apart. Then he thought about Emma's art show and grilled cheese sandwiches and the way Victoria's hand fit in his. I'm in, he said. The kiss happened before either of them planned it. One moment they were looking at each other, the next they were pressed together on that picnic table, mouths searching, hands gripping, everything else falling away. It was desperate and tender, and nothing like the careful kiss at her penthouse door. This was truth without filter, need without apology. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Victoria rested her forehead against his. We should probably talk about this, she said. Probably. Figure out what it means. Where we go from here? Yeah. Neither of them moved. Or we could just keep kissing, Victoria suggested. That works too. They did. Right there under the streetlights, in a park that smelled like cut grass and distant rain, they kissed like teenagers who'd just discovered what it meant to want someone. Caleb's hands tangled in her hair. Victoria's fingers gripped his jacket. The world narrowed to just this, mouths and breath, and the sound of her sighing his name. Eventually, they had to stop. Had to come up for air and remember they were in public, that this was still reckless, even if it felt inevitable. Come home with me, Victoria said against his mouth. Victoria, not like that. I don't want tonight to end. I want to fall asleep next to you and wake up knowing this is real. Caleb pulled back enough to see her face. Are you sure? No, but I'm asking anyway. They drove back to the city in Victoria's car, hands linked over the center console, neither speaking because words felt unnecessary. The doorman didn't even blink when they walked in together past midnight. In the penthouse, Victoria disappeared into the bedroom and came back with a t-shirt and sweatpants for him. Bathroom's through there. When Caleb came back out, she was already in bed, the covers pulled up, looking smaller somehow in that massive space. He hesitated in the doorway. "You can sleep on the couch if you want," Victoria said quietly. "I won't be offended." Instead, he crossed to the bed and slid in next to her. She immediately curled into his side, head on his chest, and Caleb wrapped his arms around her. "This okay?" he asked. "More than okay." They lay there in the darkness, the city humming beyond the windows, two people who'd spent so long performing that they'd forgotten what it felt like to just be held. "Caleb?" Victoria's voice was sleepy. "Yeah?" "Thank you for saying yes that first night on the porch. Best decision I ever made." "Liar! Emma's the best decision you ever made." "Fine, second best." She laughed softly, the sound vibrating against his chest. "I'll take it." They fell asleep like that, tangled together, and for the first time in months, neither of them felt like they were pretending to be something they weren't. Morning came too bright and too early. Caleb woke to find Victoria already awake, propped on one elbow, watching him. "That's not creepy at all," he mumbled. "Sorry, you look peaceful." "I drool when I sleep." "I noticed." He sat up, running a hand through his hair. "What time is it?" 7. "I have a meeting at 9, but I was thinking maybe we could have breakfast first." "You're going to cook again?" "I was thinking more like I'd order from that place downstairs and we could pretend I made it." "Honest, I like it." They ate on the balcony, bagels and coffee and fruit that tasted too perfect to be real. The morning air was cool, carrying the sound of traffic and the city waking up. "I need to tell you something," Victoria said, setting down her coffee. Caleb's stomach tightened. "Okay. There's a board meeting next week. They're going to ask about us, about whether this relationship affects my ability to lead the company, whether it's a distraction, all of that." She picked at her bagel. "I'm going to tell them it's serious, that I'm not ending it to make them comfortable." "You don't have to do that." "Yes, I do, because if I don't stand up for this now, they'll keep questioning it, keep treating it like something temporary or inappropriate." She looked at him. "I'm choosing you, Caleb, publicly, permanently. And I need you to know that." The weight of it settled over him. Not just the relationship, but what it meant, the scrutiny, the pressure, the way his life would change. "What if I'm not worth all that?" he asked quietly. Victoria reached across the table and took his hand. "What if you are?" He wanted to argue, to list all the reasons this was a terrible idea, but looking at her face, open, hopeful, scared but determined, he couldn't. "Okay," he said. "Okay? I'm choosing you too, whatever that means." Relief flooded her expression. "It means we're probably both crazy." "Definitely crazy." She stood, moving around the table to sit in his lap, arms around his neck. "But maybe the good kind of crazy." "Is there a good kind?" "We're about to find out." They kissed there on the balcony with the city spread out below them, morning light turning everything golden. It felt like a beginning, or maybe an ending, or possibly both at once. Caleb's phone rang. "Emma." He answered, Victoria still in his lap. "Hey, kid." "Dad, where are you? Grandma's making pancakes and she wanted to know if you're coming." "I'm at Victoria's." "Still? Did you guys have a sleepover?" Victoria muffled a laugh against his shoulder. "Something like that. I'll be there in an hour, okay?" "Okay, bring Victoria if she wants pancakes. Grandma makes too many anyway." He looked at Victoria, who was already nodding. "She says yes." After he hung up, Victoria didn't move from his lap. "Your daughter just invited me to pancakes." "She did." "That feels significant." "It is. My mom's pancakes are sacred. You don't get invited to those lightly." "Should I be nervous?" "Probably. She's going to interrogate you." "About what?" "Everything. My mom doesn't do subtle." Victoria's expression turned serious. "What if she doesn't like me?" "She'll like you. She already likes you. She's been asking when she gets to meet you for weeks." They drove to his mom's house in Caleb's truck, Victoria looking out of place but trying hard not to show it. The neighborhood was working class, houses small and well-maintained, the kind of place where people knew their neighbors and left their doors unlocked. His mom met them at the door, short, gray-haired, wearing an apron that said "World's Okayest Cook" that Emma had given her for Christmas. "Mom, this is Victoria." "I know who she is. I have Google." His mom pulled Victoria into a hug before she could prepare for it. "Come in, both of you." Emma's been talking my ear off about that art show. Inside smelled like pancakes and coffee and home in a way that made Caleb's chest tight. Emma was already at the table, scrolling through her phone, but she looked up when they walked in. "You came." "Wouldn't miss it," Victoria said. Breakfast was chaotic in the best way. His mom asked questions, polite but probing, about Victoria's work, her family, her intentions with Caleb. Victoria answered honestly, not hiding behind corporate speak or charm, just being real. Emma told elaborate stories about the art show, embellishing details. Caleb's mom served pancakes that were slightly burned on one side because she'd been too busy interrogating Victoria to watch them properly. It was messy and loud and imperfect, and watching Victoria navigate it, laughing at jokes, asking follow-up questions, genuinely engaging. Caleb felt something click into place. This was what real looked like. Not galas or performances or carefully managed appearances, just people who cared about each other eating too many pancakes on a Sunday morning. After breakfast, his mom pulled him aside while Victoria and Emma did dishes. "I like her," she said. "Yeah? She's not what I expected. Less polished, more real." His mom studied his face. "You're happy." "I am." "Good. You deserve it, baby. After everything with Emma's mom, you deserve someone who shows up." "She does. Show up, I mean." "I can see that." She patted his cheek. "Don't screw it up." "Thanks for the vote of confidence." "I'm serious. That woman in there? She's good for you, and you're good for her. I can see it in the way she looks at you." Later, driving Victoria back to her place, she was quiet. "You okay?" Caleb asked. "Your family is wonderful. They liked you." "How do you know?" "Because my mom would have found a polite way to get rid of you if she didn't. Instead, she made you take home leftovers." Victoria looked at the container of pancakes in her lap. "I've never had this before." "Pancakes? Family, like that. Easy and warm and real. My father and I had dinners where we discussed business. We didn't have pancakes and chaos." Caleb reached over and took her hand. "Well, you do now, if you want." She laced her fingers through his. "I want." That night, lying in his own bed for the first time in 48 hours, Caleb got a text. "I told my board today. About us. It went better than expected." "V, that's good. One of them asked if I was serious about you. I said yes without hesitation." "Are you? Serious, I mean, yes." "Are you?" Caleb stared at the question. This was the moment, the point where he either committed or backed out, where the lie they'd started became something permanent and irreversible. He thought about Victoria in his mom's kitchen, laughing with Emma, about falling asleep with her in his arms, about the way she looked at him like he was someone worth choosing. "Yeah, I am. Good, because I think I'm falling in love with you." His heart stopped, then started again, faster. "Victoria." "You don't have to say it back. I just needed you to know." He called instead of texting. She answered on the first ring. "Hi," she said, voice uncertain. "I think I'm falling in love with you too," Caleb said. "Actually, I don't think. I know." Silence. Then a shaky breath. "Really? Really? When did you know? Honestly? Probably that first night on the porch. I just didn't have the words for it yet. That's insane." "I know. We barely knew each other." "I know that too. But you're sure now?" "I'm sure." He could hear her crying softly on the other end. "I love you," she said again, and this time it sounded like relief. "I love you too." They stayed on the phone for hours, talking about everything and nothing, saying "I love you" like they were testing out the words, seeing how they fit. By the time they hung up, it was past 2 a.m, and Caleb lay in the darkness grinning like an idiot. 6 months ago, a stranger had asked him to pretend to be her boyfriend. Now he was in love with her. Really, truly, terrifyingly in love. He should have seen it coming, should have known that nothing that started with a lie could stay simple. But lying there in his small house with his daughter asleep down the hall, and Victoria's voice still echoing in his ears, Caleb couldn't bring himself to regret a single choice that had led him here. Whatever came next, complications, scrutiny, the inevitable challenges of two different worlds trying to merge, they'd face it together. That was the truth that had emerged from all the lies. They were in this, really in this, and there was no going back. 3 months after that phone call, Victoria moved some of her things into Caleb's house. Not everything. She kept the penthouse for work, for the life that still required her to be Victoria Hale, billionaire CEO. But she brought enough that the house started to feel like theirs instead of just his. Emma helped her unpack, offering commentary on every item. "You have like 12 black dresses," Emma observed, hanging another one in the closet that was rapidly running out of space. "They're all different," Victoria defended. "They're all black. Different cuts, different occasions." Emma held up two that looked identical. "Explain the difference between these." Victoria opened her mouth, then closed it. "Okay, fine. Maybe I have a type." Caleb watched from the doorway, arms crossed, trying not to smile. His bedroom, the space that had been just his for over a decade, was transforming. Victoria's books on the nightstand, her laptop on the desk, the faint smell of her perfume mixing with the familiar scent of wood and laundry detergent. It should have felt invasive. Instead, it felt right. "Dad's smiling like a weirdo again," Emma announced. "I'm not smiling." "You totally are. It's gross." Victoria crossed the room and kissed his cheek. "Let him be gross. I like it." "You're both gross," Emma declared, but she was grinning. That night, after Emma had gone to bed, Caleb and Victoria lay tangled together in sheets that now smelled like both of them. "Your daughter called us gross today," Victoria murmured against his chest. "She calls everything gross. Last week my coffee was gross." "Still, it's kind of perfect, isn't it, being gross together?" Caleb ran his fingers through her hair, still getting used to the fact that this was his life now. "Yeah, it is." Victoria shifted, propping herself up to look at him. "I need to tell you something." His stomach tightened. Those words never led anywhere good. "Okay. I'm late." "Late for what?" "My period. I'm late." The world stopped, then started again, too fast. "How late?" "Week and a half. I took a test this morning." She paused, watching his face. "2 tests, actually, both positive." Caleb sat up, the sheets falling away. "You're pregnant." "Yeah." "Are you... How do you feel about that?" Victoria's laugh was shaky. "I have no idea. Terrified? Excited? Like I might throw up, which could be morning sickness or panic. I honestly can't tell." He reached for her hand, grounding himself in something solid. "When were you going to tell me?" "I'm telling you now. I wanted to be sure first. Didn't want to freak you out over a false alarm." "And you're sure now?" "I have a doctor's appointment tomorrow. To confirm. But yeah, I'm pretty sure." Caleb's mind raced. A baby, another child. He'd done this before, knew how hard it was, how completely it would change everything. But he'd done it alone, terrified and 21 and completely unprepared. This was different. This was Victoria, and they were doing it together, and he still felt terrified, but in a different way. "Say something," Victoria said quietly. "Please." "I love you." "That's not... I need to know what you're thinking." "I'm thinking this is insane. We've been together less than a year. You just moved in. Emma's still adjusting. This is terrible timing." Victoria's face fell. "Right, yeah, I know. But I'm also thinking that I love you. And if we're doing this, we're doing it together. All of it." Her eyes filled. "Really? Really? Are we keeping it? Do you want to?" He thought about Emma as a baby, those first impossible months, the exhaustion and fear and overwhelming love. "Yeah, I do. Do you?" "I think so. I mean, I'm 31. I always thought maybe someday, but someday felt so far away. Now it's here and it's real and I'm completely unprepared." "Nobody's ever prepared." "You were. With Emma." Caleb laughed. "I was a disaster with Emma. I didn't know what I was doing. Still don't most days. But you figured it out. We'll figure this out too." Victoria kissed him, and he could taste salt from her tears. "I'm so scared." "Me too." "But also kind of excited?" "Yeah, that too." They held each other in the darkness, processing this new reality. A baby. Their baby. The weight of it settled over them like a blanket, warm and suffocating at once. "We should probably tell Emma," Victoria said eventually. "Tomorrow. Let's get through the doctor's appointment first. Make sure everything's okay." Good plan. But sleep didn't come easy. Caleb lay awake, staring at the ceiling, doing math in his head. Diapers and childcare and college funds. The house suddenly felt too small. His truck too old. Everything insufficient. Next to him, Victoria's breathing was uneven. Also awake, also spiraling. "Stop thinking so loud," he murmured. "Can't help it, my brain won't shut off." "What are you thinking about?" "Everything, the company, how I'm going to tell my board, whether I can even do this, be a mother and run Hale Industries, whether I'll be any good at it." "You'll be great at it." "How do you know?" "Because you care. That's half the battle right there." She turned to face him. "What if I'm like my father? What if I end up prioritizing work over the baby, missing everything important because I'm too busy building something that doesn't actually matter? Then I'll call you on it. That's what we do, right? Keep each other honest." "Promise?" "Promise." The doctor's appointment confirmed what they already knew. 8 weeks. Due date sometime in late spring. Everything looked normal, healthy, progressing as expected. Victoria sat on the exam table, still in the paper gown, staring at the ultrasound photo like it might disappear if she looked away. "That's our baby," she said. "Yeah. It's so small. They get bigger, trust me." She laughed, slightly hysterical. "I can't believe this is happening." That evening, they sat Emma down in the living room. She knew something was up. They'd been acting weird all day, exchanging looks, finishing each other's sentences more than usual. "Okay, you're freaking me out," Emma said. "What's going on? Are you guys breaking up?" "No," Caleb said quickly. "Nothing like that." "Then what?" Victoria took a breath. "I'm pregnant." Emma's eyes went wide. "Like, actually pregnant? With a baby?" "That's generally how it works, yeah." "Holy shit." "Emma, sorry, but holy shit, Dad. You're having a baby?" "We're having a baby?" Victoria corrected gently. "All of us. As a family." Emma looked between them, processing. "So I'm going to have a brother or sister?" "Looks like it," Caleb said. For a long moment, Emma just sat there. Then her face split into a grin. "That's actually kind of cool." Relief flooded through Caleb. "Yeah?" "Yeah, I mean, it's weird and I have questions, but also cool." She paused. "Can I tell people at school?" "Maybe wait until we're past the first trimester," Victoria suggested, "just to be safe." "When's that?" "Couple more weeks." Emma nodded, suddenly serious. "Are you guys getting married?" The question hung in the air. Caleb and Victoria looked at each other. "We haven't really talked about that yet," Caleb said carefully, "but you're having a baby together. Don't people usually get married first?" "Sometimes. But there's no rule that says we have to." Emma crossed her arms. "I think you should. Not because of the baby, but because you love each other, and it would be nice. Plus then, Victoria would officially be my stepmom, which is less confusing than Dad's girlfriend who lives here sometimes." After Emma went to bed, Victoria found Caleb on the back porch, nursing a beer and staring into the darkness. "She has a point," Victoria said, settling next to him. "About what?" "Marriage. Making this official." Caleb took a long drink. "Is that what you want?" "I don't know." "Is it what you want?" "I asked you first," Victoria smiled. Very mature. "I try." They sat in silence for a moment, the question hovering between them. "I was married before," Caleb said finally. "Not to Emma's mom. Before that, when I was 20, lasted 8 months. Biggest mistake of my life." "You never mentioned that." "Not exactly proud of it. We were kids playing house, and when real life hit, we fell apart." He set down his beer. "So yeah, marriage scares the hell out of me, but also the idea of not marrying you scares me more. That's the most romantic thing anyone's ever said to me. I'm serious. I want this. You, me, Emma, the baby. All of it. I just don't want to screw it up by rushing into something because it's what we're supposed to do." Victoria took his hand. "What if we just see how it goes? No pressure, no timeline. Just keep doing what we're doing. And if one of us changes their mind later, then we talk about it, like adults. Look at us, being all mature and communicative." Emma would be proud. The pregnancy progressed. Victoria's body changed in ways that fascinated and terrified her. Morning sickness hit hard in the second month, leaving her pale and exhausted. Caleb learned to keep crackers by the bed and ginger tea in the kitchen. Work became complicated. Victoria tried to hide it at first, wearing loose clothing to board meetings, scheduling appointments around her calendar. But by the fourth month, there was no hiding it. The announcement went out to the board on a Tuesday. By Wednesday, the press had it. By Thursday, Caleb couldn't leave his house without cameras in his face. "Mr. Hayes, how does it feel to be starting a family with Victoria Hale? Are you planning to get married? Will this affect Ms. Hale's role at the company?" He learned to say no comment and keep walking, but it was invasive in ways he hadn't prepared for. Strangers had opinions about their relationship, their choices, their future. The internet had takes. Some supportive, many cruel. Victoria handled it better than he did, or at least pretended to. But he'd catch her reading comments sometimes, face tight, and know she was taking it in even when she claimed not to care. "They're calling me irresponsible," she said one night, phone in hand, saying I'm setting a bad example for young women in business. By having a baby? By having a baby out of wedlock with someone they consider beneath my station. She threw the phone onto the couch. As if any of it is their business. It's not. I know, but it still gets to me. Emma dealt with her own version of the attention. Kids at school asked invasive questions. Teachers looked at her differently. She came home frustrated more often than not. Madison's mom asked if you guys were getting married, Emma reported over dinner. I told her to mind her business, and now I have detention. Emma, what? She was being nosy. You can't tell adults to mind their business, Caleb said, trying not to smile. Why not? It's true. Victoria reached across the table and squeezed Emma's hand. Thank you for defending us, but maybe use slightly more polite words next time. Fine. I'll say with all due respect, that's none of your concern. That's still going to get you detention. Worth it. By the 5th month, Victoria's body had transformed in ways that made her self-conscious. She stood in front of the bathroom mirror, hands on her growing belly, frowning. I look like I swallowed a basketball, she said. Caleb came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. You look beautiful. Liar. I'm serious. You're growing our kid. That's the most beautiful thing in the world. My ankles are swollen. I can't fit into any of my clothes. And yesterday I cried because we were out of pickles. Pregnancy hormones are wild. This is your fault, you know. Pretty sure it takes 2. She turned in his arms, and despite the complaints, her eyes were soft. I love you. I love you too, swollen ankles and all. Such a romantic. The 6th month brought complications. Victoria started having contractions. False labor, the doctor said, but enough to put her on partial bed rest. She fought it at first, trying to maintain her schedule, refusing to slow down. Then one night, she woke Caleb at 3 a.m, gasping in pain. Something's wrong, she managed. The hospital was a blur. Bright lights and urgent voices and monitors beeping too fast. Caleb held Victoria's hand while doctors examined her, explaining in calm voices that masked the underlying concern. Preterm labor. Too early. The baby needed more time. They gave Victoria medication to stop the contractions, admitted her overnight for observation. Caleb sat in the uncomfortable hospital chair, watching her sleep, terrified in ways he hadn't been since Emma was born. What if something happened? What if he lost them both? The thought was unbearable. In the morning, the contractions had stopped. The baby's heartbeat was strong. Crisis averted for now. But the doctor was firm. Bed rest. Not partial. Complete. No work, no stress, minimal activity until we're confident the baby will stay put. Victoria looked like she might argue. Then she touched her belly and nodded. Okay. Moving her into his house full-time felt different than when she'd brought her things over. This wasn't a choice. It was necessity. She couldn't be alone in the penthouse, couldn't manage stairs, needed help with basic things. Caleb took time off work. Not much. They needed the income, but enough to be there during the day. His mom helped, coming over to keep Victoria company, bringing food and gossip and a calm presence that Victoria clearly needed. Emma stepped up in ways that surprised everyone. She'd come home from school and sit with Victoria, doing homework at the foot of the bed, filling her in on the drama of 7th grade. Madison's boyfriend broke up with her, Emma reported one afternoon. She's devastated. I told her middle school relationships don't matter anyway, but she said I don't understand because I've never been in love. Have you? Victoria asked, genuinely curious. No. Boys my age are idiots. She paused. There's this girl in my art class, though. She's really cool. Victoria's expression shifted to something warm. Yeah? Yeah. But I don't know if she likes me like that. We just talk about art and stuff. That's how it starts, talking about stuff. Emma looked at her. Is that how it was with you and Dad? Sort of. We started by pretending, but the talking is what made it real. Caleb listened from the doorway, his heart full in ways he couldn't articulate, his daughter coming out to Victoria before she'd come out to him. Victoria handling it with such casual grace, like it was the most natural thing in the world. He'd never loved either of them more. The bed rest stretched into weeks. Victoria grew restless, then frustrated, then quietly depressed. She wasn't used to being still, to being dependent, to having no control. I'm going insane, she told Caleb one night. I love you. I love this baby, but I'm losing my mind. I know. The company's falling apart without me. My assistant calls with questions I should be handling in person. The foundation gala is in 2 weeks, and I can't even attend. They'll manage. That's what I'm afraid of, that they'll realize they don't actually need me. Caleb sat on the edge of the bed. Of course they need you, but right now this baby needs you more, and I need you. So you're going to stay here, rest, and trust that the world will keep turning. I hate this. I know you do. She cried then, the ugly kind of crying that came from feeling helpless. Caleb held her, rubbing circles on her back, wishing he could fix it, and knowing he couldn't. The 7th month arrived, then the 8th. The baby grew, Victoria's body accommodated, and slowly the danger passed. The doctor gave cautious approval for limited activity. Victoria's first trip out of the house was to Emma's school play. Caleb pushed her in a wheelchair despite her protests, and they sat in the back row, watching Emma absolutely kill it as the lead in some modern adaptation of a Shakespeare comedy. She's really good, Victoria whispered. She is. We made her feel safe enough to be herself. That matters. Yeah, it does. After the play, Emma bounded over, still in costume, face flushed with excitement. You came, she said, hugging Victoria carefully, mindful of the belly. Wouldn't have missed it. You were incredible. Thanks. Did you see the part where I fell? That wasn't planned, but I made it look like it was. The mark of a true professional. They took Emma out for ice cream afterward. The three of them squished into a booth, laughing and talking and being normal despite everything. Caleb watched his family, because that's what they were now, a family, and felt something settle in his chest. This was enough. This was everything. At 36 weeks, Victoria went into labor for real. It started around dinner time, contractions that were different from the false ones, steadier and stronger. Caleb timed them while trying not to panic. Emma packed a bag with all the things they'd discussed, moving with surprising calm. Shouldn't we go to the hospital? Emma asked. Not yet, Victoria said through gritted teeth. They said wait until contractions are 5 minutes apart. How far apart are they now? 7. They waited. Victoria breathed through contractions. Caleb rubbed her back. Emma hovered anxiously. When the contractions hit 5 minutes, they finally left. The hospital staff knew them from the earlier scare. They got Victoria settled quickly, monitors attached, IV started. The doctor confirmed what they already knew. This was real labor, and the baby was coming. You've got a few hours probably, the doctor said. Try to rest. Rest, like that was possible. Caleb stayed by Victoria's side, holding her hand through contractions, feeding her ice chips, being the anchor she needed. Emma waited in the hallway with Caleb's mom, both of them anxious and excited at once. Labor was long, painful. Nothing like the relatively quick birth Caleb remembered with Emma. Victoria labored for 12 hours, exhausted and determined, refusing the epidural until hour 8 when the pain became too much. I can't do this, she gasped at one point. You can. You are. I'm serious, Caleb. I can't. Look at me. He waited until her eyes met his. You're the strongest person I know. You can absolutely do this. Promise? Promise. She squeezed his hand so hard he thought bones might break, and pushed through another contraction. Finally, at 6:47 a.m., their daughter was born. Clara Hayes. 6 pounds, 8 ounces, perfect in every way. They placed her on Victoria's chest, and Caleb watched the woman he loved meet their baby for the first time. Victoria was crying, touching Clara's tiny face with shaking hands, saying, "Hi, hi, hi," over and over like a prayer. "She's ours," Victoria whispered. "Yeah, she is." Caleb cut the umbilical cord with hands that wouldn't stop shaking. Then he held his daughter, this impossibly small person he'd helped create, and felt the world shift. Emma met her little sister an hour later. She approached the hospital bed cautiously, eyes wide, taking in Victoria exhausted but glowing and the tiny bundle in her arms. "Want to hold her?" Victoria asked. Emma nodded, speechless for once. Caleb helped her settle in the chair, showing her how to support Clara's head. Emma stared down at her baby sister with an expression of pure wonder. "She's so small," Emma breathed. "You were this small once," Caleb said. "No way." "Way, trust me." They sat there, the four of them, and for a moment everything was perfect. No complications, no fear, just family. Then reality came rushing back. Victoria's recovery was harder than expected. The birth had taken a lot out of her, and she struggled with nursing, with sleep deprivation, with the overwhelming weight of new motherhood. Caleb tried to help, taking night shifts when he could, handling diaper changes and soothing. But he still had to work. Bills didn't stop just because they had a newborn. His mom helped during the day, but it wasn't enough. 3 weeks in, Victoria broke down. "I can't do this," she sobbed, Clara crying in her arms, both of them exhausted beyond measure. "I'm a terrible mother. She won't stop crying. I can't get her to latch. I haven't slept more than 2 hours at a time in weeks." "You're not a terrible mother. You're a new mother. There's a difference." "I should be better at this. I run a company. I manage hundreds of people. Why can't I figure out one tiny baby?" "Because babies don't follow logic or business plans. They just are." Victoria looked at him with bloodshot eyes. "How did you do this alone?" "Badly. I cried a lot, called my mom constantly, made mistakes." "That's not reassuring. It's honest." He took Clara, who immediately quieted in his arms. Not because he was better, just because he was different. "You're doing fine, Victoria. Better than fine." "I don't feel like it." "Nobody does. That's parenting." 4 weeks after Clara was born, Victoria got the call she'd been half expecting and wholly dreading. The board wanted to meet. She stared at her phone, at the email her assistant had forwarded, reading between the lines of the urgent matter requiring discussion. "They're going to ask me to step down," she told Caleb that night. "You don't know that." "I do. They've been circling for months. Now I've been out of the office for weeks, delegating everything. They probably think I'm not committed anymore." "Are you?" She looked at him, at Clara asleep in the bassinet nearby. "I don't know. 3 months ago, I would have said the company was everything. Now it feels like just a thing. Important, but not the most important." "So tell them that." "And if they force me out anyway?" Caleb pulled her close. "Then we figure it out. Together." The board meeting was scheduled for the following week. Victoria prepared like she was going to war, researching, rehearsing, finding childcare for Clara even though it killed her to leave the baby for that long. The morning of the meeting, she stood in front of the mirror in her first real suit in months, trying to remember how to be the woman who ran an empire instead of the one who couldn't figure out how to get a baby to sleep. "You look terrifying," Emma observed from the doorway. "Good terrifying or bad terrifying?" "The kind where people do what you say because they're scared not to." Victoria smiled. "That's exactly what I'm going for." Caleb drove her to the office, Clara in a car seat in the back. The plan was for him to wait nearby in case the meeting ran short, in case Victoria needed to nurse, in case anything went wrong. "You've got this," he said as she got out. "How do you know?" "Because you're Victoria Hale, and you don't back down from anything." She kissed him, fierce and quick. "I love you." "Love you too. Now go show them who's boss." The boardroom felt different than she remembered, colder, more hostile. The faces around the table were familiar but guarded. Victoria took her seat at the head of the table, the position she'd earned, and waited. The chairman cleared his throat. "Thank you for coming, Victoria. We know this is a difficult time. What can I do for you, Richard? We need to discuss your role moving forward. Your situation has raised some concerns." "My situation being that I had a baby?" "Your extended absence. The delegation of responsibilities. Some of us feel that perhaps you're not as committed to the company as you once were. Victoria felt anger rise but pushed it down. I've been running this company for 9 years. I've tripled our revenue, expanded into 6 new markets, and maintained consistent growth even during recessions. One maternity leave doesn't erase that. No one's saying it does. Then what are you saying? Another board member, Patricia, someone Victoria had thought was an ally, spoke up. We're concerned about your priorities. The company needs a leader who's fully present, not someone who's distracted by personal matters. Personal matters like raising my child? That's not what we mean. It's exactly what you mean. Victoria stood, and the room went quiet. Let me be very clear, I love this company. I've dedicated my entire adult life to it, but I also love my daughter, and I refuse to apologize for that. I can do both. I will do both. And if you think motherhood makes me weak or unfocused, you're not paying attention. Richard shifted uncomfortably. Victoria, I'm not finished. You want to know about commitment? I came to this meeting 3 weeks postpartum. I've been answering emails at 3 a.m. while nursing. I've made decisions about million-dollar deals while bouncing a crying baby. That's not lack of commitment. That's doing 2 impossible jobs at once and somehow making it work. The room was silent. So here's what's going to happen, Victoria continued. I'm taking the rest of my maternity leave, the full 12 weeks I'm entitled to. Then I'm coming back and we're going to restructure how this company handles parental leave for all employees, not just executives. Because if I'm struggling with world-class support and resources, imagine how our warehouse workers feel. Patricia looked stunned. You want to expand parental leave? I want to make this a company that values families as much as profit. Revolutionary, I know. Richard found his voice. That will cost less than the turnover and retraining we currently deal with. I'll have projections on your desk by Monday. Victoria gathered her things. Are we done here? No one spoke. Good. I'll see you in 8 weeks. She walked out of that boardroom with her head high and her heart pounding. In the elevator, she finally let herself shake. Her phone rang. Caleb. How'd it go? I think I either saved my job or just quit spectacularly. Not sure which. Want to elaborate? Later. Right now, I just want to see my daughter. They met at a coffee shop 2 blocks from the office. Clara was awake, eyes wide, taking in the world with that baby intensity. Victoria scooped her up, breathing in that newborn smell, and felt everything else fall away. You're amazing, you know that? Caleb said. I yelled at my board. Like I said, amazing. That night, after Clara had finally settled, after Emma had gone to bed, Caleb found Victoria on the back porch, still in her power suit, staring at nothing. You okay? He asked. I don't know. I meant what I said in there, about being able to do both. But I'm terrified I'm wrong, that I'm going to fail at one or both and disappoint everyone who's counting on me. Caleb sat next to her. Can I tell you something? Please. You're going to mess up sometimes. Miss meetings because Clara's sick. Fall asleep during Emma's recital because you were up all night. Make mistakes at work because you're exhausted. That's not failure, that's life. Encouraging, as always. I'm not finished. You're also going to do incredible things. Raise 2 amazing kids. Run a company that actually gives a damn about its people. Be the woman both our daughters look up to and want to be. He took her hand. So yeah, it's going to be hard. But you're going to do it anyway, because that's who you are. Victoria leaned her head on his shoulder. When did you get so wise? Years of screwing up and learning from it. I love you. I love you too. They sat there in this darkness, exhausted new parents who'd somehow built a life from a lie, and neither of them had any idea what was coming next. But for now, this moment, they were enough. Clara turned 6 months old on a Tuesday. Caleb marked it by finding Victoria asleep at the kitchen table at 3 a.m, laptop still open, baby monitor clutched in one hand. Victoria. He touched her shoulder gently. Come to bed. She startled awake, disoriented. What time is it? Late or early, depending on how you look at it. I was just finishing the quarterly report. The board meeting's on Friday and I need... She stopped, seeing his face. I'm doing it again, aren't I? Yeah, you are. Victoria closed the laptop with a sigh. I can't help it. If I don't stay on top of everything, it falls apart. The world existed before you were born. It'll keep turning if you sleep. That's not comforting. It's true, though. They went to bed, but Caleb couldn't sleep. He watched Victoria's face in the darkness. saw the exhaustion etched there, even in rest, and worried. She was running herself into the ground, trying to be everything to everyone. CEO, mother, partner. Something had to give. He just hoped it wouldn't be her. The next morning, Victoria was up before dawn, already dressed for work by the time Clara started fussing. Caleb handled the morning routine, bottle, diaper change, the familiar dance of infant care, while Victoria stood in front of the mirror fixing her hair for the third time. "You look fine," he called from the nursery. "I look tired." "You are tired. That's what happens when you work 80-hour weeks with a 6-month-old. She appeared in the doorway. "Are you saying I should work less?" "I'm saying you're allowed to be human. Human doesn't keep the board off my back." "The board can wait. Clara can't." Victoria's face tightened. "Don't do that. Don't make me choose." "I'm not. I'm just pointing out that you're burning the candle at both ends and eventually there won't be any candle left." They'd had versions of this argument a dozen times since Clara was born. It always ended the same way. Victoria promising to slow down, Caleb promising to be more understanding, both of them falling back into the same patterns within days. This time, Victoria just grabbed her briefcase and left without saying goodbye. Emma found Caleb still in the nursery, holding Clara, staring at nothing. "You guys fighting again?" she asked. "We're not fighting." "Dad, I can hear the tension from my room. It's like living in a pressure cooker." "Since when do you know what a pressure cooker is?" "We learned about them in physics. Don't change the subject." Emma sat on the floor, already in her school uniform. "You're worried about her. Is it that obvious?" "Kind of. You get this look, like you're trying to fix something but don't know how." Caleb adjusted Clara in his arms. "I don't know how to help her. She won't slow down, won't ask for help, just keeps pushing until she collapses. So make her stop." "It's not that simple." "Why not?" "Because she's an adult with her own choices. I can't force her to do anything." Emma considered this. "But you can tell her you're scared, that watching her kill herself working scares you." "When did you get so smart?" "I've always been smart. You just notice more now that I'm saying things you don't want to hear." That night, Caleb tried to talk to Victoria again. She came home late, missed dinner, went straight to the nursery to check on Clara even though the baby was already asleep. "We need to talk," Caleb said from the doorway. "Can it wait? I'm exhausted." "That's kind of the point." Victoria turned, and even in the dim nursery light, he could see how worn down she was. "I know what you're going to say. I'm working too much. I need to slow down. I'm going to burn out." "Are those things not true?" "They're true. They're also necessary. Do you know what happens if I show any weakness to that board? They'll use it as ammunition. They're already looking for reasons to push me out." "Then let them." She stared at him. "What? Let them push you out. Start something new. Something that doesn't require you to sacrifice your health and sanity." "I can't just walk away. That company is my father's legacy." "Your father's dead. This is your life." The words came out harsher than he intended. Victoria flinched like he'd slapped her. "You don't understand," she said quietly. "Then help me understand. That company is all I have of him. If I lose it, I lose the last connection to who he was, what he built. I can't just let that go." "You have Clara. You have Emma. You have me. Isn't that enough?" Victoria's eyes filled. "I don't know. Is it supposed to be?" The question hung between them, heavy and unanswerable. "I think you should talk to someone," Caleb said finally. "A therapist. Someone who can help you work through this." "I don't need therapy. Everyone needs therapy. I've been going for years." That stopped her. "You have?" "Since Emma's mom left. How else do you think I've kept it together?" Victoria sat down hard in the rocking chair, all the fight draining out of her. "I'm so tired, Caleb. All the time. Bone tired. And I don't know how to stop." He knelt in front of her, taking her hands. "So let me help. Let Emma help. Let your assistant handle more. Delegate the things that don't absolutely require you. And if it all falls apart, then it falls apart. But at least you'll still be here to see it." She started crying then, quiet, exhausted tears that spoke of months of held-back emotion. Caleb held her while she fell apart in the nursery, both of them careful not to wake Clara, both of them terrified of what came next. Victoria did start therapy. Twice a week at first, then once as things stabilized. She didn't talk much about what happened in those sessions, but Caleb noticed small changes. She started leaving work at reasonable hours some days, started saying no to meetings that weren't critical, started actually sleeping instead of working through the night. It wasn't perfect. She still had bad weeks where the old patterns resurfaced, but it was progress. Then, 3 weeks before Clara's first birthday, Victoria found the lump. She was in the shower when she felt it, a small, hard mass in her left breast that hadn't been there before. She stood under the water, hand pressed against it, and felt her entire world tilt. She didn't tell Caleb immediately, couldn't find the words. Instead, she made an appointment with her doctor, went alone, tried to convince herself it was nothing. The mammogram came back abnormal. They ordered a biopsy. The wait for results was 10 days that felt like 10 years. Victoria went through the motions: work, home, Clara, sleep. But inside she was screaming. She'd finally started to get her life under control, finally found some kind of balance, and now this. The night before the results were due, she broke down and told Caleb. They were in bed, Clara asleep in the nursery, Emma at a friend's house. The perfect time to have a conversation you've been avoiding. I need to tell you something, Victoria said into the darkness. Caleb rolled to face her. Okay. I found a lump. 3 weeks ago. I had a biopsy. The results come tomorrow. She felt him go completely still next to her. What? I'm sorry. I should have told you sooner. I just couldn't. I didn't know how to say it out loud. Caleb sat up, turning on the bedside lamp. 3 weeks? Victoria, you've been dealing with this alone for 3 weeks? I know. I'm sorry. Stop apologizing and talk to me. What did the doctor say? That we won't know anything until the biopsy results. It could be nothing, could be benign, or it could be... She couldn't finish the sentence. Cancer, Caleb said flatly. Yeah. He pulled her into his arms, and she felt him shaking. We'll deal with it. Whatever it is, we'll deal with it. What if it's bad? Then it's bad, and we fight it. What if I die? You're not going to die. You can't know that. I know I'm not losing you. Not now. Not when we finally figured this out. Victoria cried against his chest, all the fear she'd been holding in for weeks pouring out. Caleb held her and promised things he couldn't guarantee, and they both knew it but pretended otherwise because what else could they do? The results came back positive. Stage 2 breast cancer. Treatable, the doctor said. Caught relatively early. Good prognosis with aggressive treatment. Victoria heard the words, but they didn't quite land. Cancer. She had cancer. What's the treatment plan? Caleb asked, because Victoria couldn't form words. The doctor outlined it. Surgery to remove the tumor, followed by chemotherapy, possibly radiation. 6 months minimum. Maybe longer. And her chances? Caleb's voice was steady, but his hand in Victoria's was trembling. With treatment, very good. This type of cancer responds well to chemotherapy. We're looking at better than 90% survival rate. 90%, which meant 10% didn't make it. Victoria focused on that 10% all the way home. They told Emma that night. Sat her down in the living room and delivered the news as gently as possible. Emma's face went white. You have cancer? Yeah, Victoria said. But it's treatable. The doctors are optimistic. Optimistic isn't a guarantee. No, it's not. Emma looked at Caleb. Is she going to die? No, Caleb said firmly. She's going to fight this, and she's going to win. How do you know? Because she's the strongest person I know, and because we're not giving her any other option. Emma started crying. Victoria pulled her close, and they held each other while Caleb watched, his own eyes bright. I'm scared, Emma whispered. Me too, Victoria admitted, but we're going to get through this, all of us. The surgery was scheduled for 2 weeks out. Victoria used that time to get her affairs in order, updating her will, arranging coverage at work, preparing for the possibility that she might not come back. Caleb caught her writing letters one night. What are those? He asked. Letters to Clara, to Emma, to you. In case, don't. Caleb, we have to be realistic. No. We have to be hopeful. You're going to be fine. But if I'm not, then we'll deal with it then. Right now, you're here. You're fighting. And I need you to believe you're going to make it. Victoria set down the pen. What if I can't? Then fake it, like we did at the beginning. Pretend until it becomes real. She laughed, slightly hysterical. We're back to pretending? If that's what it takes? The surgery went well. They removed the tumor and some surrounding tissue. Clean margins, the surgeon said. No sign it had spread to the lymph nodes. Victoria woke up in recovery to find Caleb asleep in the chair next to her bed, his hand wrapped around hers even in sleep. She squeezed his fingers and he startled awake. Hey, he said, voice rough. Hey, how do you feel? Like I got hit by a truck. That's the anesthesia. It'll wear off. Did they get it all? Yeah, they got it all. Victoria closed her eyes, relief flooding through her. Good. Your mom's here. And Emma. They're in the waiting room. My mom's here? Yeah, I called her. Hope that's okay. Victoria hadn't seen her mother in over a year. They'd had a falling out after her father died. Something about the company and expectations and old wounds that never healed. I don't know if I can deal with her right now, Victoria said. You don't have to. Just know she's here if you want her. In the end, Victoria did see her. Her mother came into the room cautiously, like approaching something fragile. Victoria. Mom. They looked at each other across the space of a hospital room in a year of silence. I'm sorry, her mother said. For everything. For the fighting. For not being there. It's okay. It's not. But I'm here now. If you'll let me be. Victoria nodded, throat tight. Okay. It wasn't forgiveness exactly, but it was a start. Chemotherapy started 3 weeks after surgery. Victoria lost her hair by the second round, and that was somehow harder than the diagnosis itself. She stood in front of the bathroom mirror, running her hands over her bald head, and felt like she was disappearing. Caleb found her there, crying silently. It's just hair, he said. I know. It'll grow back. I know that too. Then why are you crying? Because I don't recognize myself anymore. Because I look sick. Because Clara's going to grow up with pictures of her mom looking like this. Caleb turned her to face him. You know what Clara's going to see? Her mom fighting. Her mom refusing to give up. Her mom being the strongest person in the room, even when she's at her weakest. You have an answer for everything. Not everything, but I'm working on it. Emma helped Victoria pick out scarves and hats. They made a day of it, shopping and laughing and pretending this was normal. Emma tried on ridiculous options to make Victoria smile, a neon pink wig, a hat shaped like a cat, a scarf covered in flamingos. Too much? Emma asked, modeling the flamingo scarf. Way too much. I love it. They bought 3 scarves and 2 hats. Emma insisted on getting matching ones. So we can be a unit, she explained. You don't have to do that. I want to. Victoria hugged her, this girl who'd accepted her into their family without question, who'd called her mom for the first time last month without making it a big deal. Thank you, Victoria whispered. For what? For being you. The chemotherapy was brutal. Victoria spent days too nauseous to move, too exhausted to function. She missed work for weeks at a time. The board was understanding at first, then concerned, then quietly plotting. Her assistant called one afternoon while Victoria was in bed, unable to even sit up without the room spinning. They're scheduling a vote, the assistant said quietly. Next board meeting, about your position. Let them vote. Victoria's. I mean it. Let them vote. I'm too tired to fight them right now. She hung up and stared at the ceiling. Everything she'd built, everything she'd worked for, slipping away because her body had betrayed her. Caleb took family leave from work. They couldn't afford it, not really, but he did it anyway. Someone had to care for Clara, for Victoria, for the house that kept running despite the chaos. His mom helped. Emma helped. Victoria's mother showed up 3 times a week with soup and quiet company. They built a routine around treatment, good days and bad days, moments of hope and stretches of despair. Clara learned to be gentle with her mom, to not pull on the scarves, to give extra kisses when Victoria looked sad. Mama's sad? Clara asked one afternoon, patting Victoria's face with chubby hands. Yeah, baby, Mama's sad. Kiss make better? Kiss always makes better. Clara planted sloppy kisses all over Victoria's face until she was laughing despite everything. See, Clara said triumphantly. Better. Yeah, better. The board voted to remove Victoria from her position as CEO. The news came via email on a Tuesday afternoon. She read it twice, then set her phone down and waited to feel something. Anger, betrayal, grief. Instead, she felt relief. They voted me out, she told Caleb that evening. He looked up from where he was feeding Clara. How do you feel about that? I don't know. I should be devastated. That company was everything. Was? Is? Was. I can't tell anymore. She sat down heavily. Part of me is furious. They didn't even wait until I finished treatment. But another part is just tired, relieved to not have to fight that battle anymore. So what are you going to do? I have no idea. For the first time in her adult life, Victoria had no plan, no strategy, no next move mapped out. It was terrifying. It was also strangely freeing. The chemotherapy ended in February. Victoria's last treatment fell on Valentine's Day, which felt like either irony or fate depending on how you looked at it. Caleb brought her flowers, pink carnations because she'd mentioned once they were her favorite and he'd remembered. They sat in the infusion center, watching poison drip into her veins one last time, and didn't talk about what came next. You did it, Caleb said when the bag was finally empty. We did it. No, this one was all you. Victoria looked at him. This man who'd shown up every single time, who'd held her hair when she threw up, who'd carried her to bed when she was too weak to walk, who'd never once made her feel like a burden. I want to marry you, she said. Caleb blinked. What? I want to marry you. Not because of Clara or because it's expected, or any of the reasons Emma listed last year. I want to marry you because you're the best person I know, and I want to spend whatever life I have left making sure you know that. Victoria, I know it's sudden. I know I'm still sick, and we don't know yet if the treatment worked. But I've been thinking about it for months, and I'm sure. Caleb set down the flowers. Are you proposing to me? I think I am. Is that okay? It's extremely okay. He was smiling now, that full, genuine smile she'd fallen in love with. But you should know, I've had a ring in my sock drawer for 3 months. You what? I was going to wait until you were in remission. Didn't want you to think I was proposing out of fear or obligation. So we're both idiots who waited too long? Looks like it. Will you marry me, Caleb Hayes? Yeah, I will. He leaned over the IV pole to kiss her. Will you marry me, Victoria Hale? I thought you'd never ask. They got married on a Saturday in April, 2 months after Victoria's last treatment, and 1 week after her scans came back clean. No evidence of disease. Remission. The wedding was small, just family and a handful of close friends. They held it in Caleb's backyard, which Emma and Victoria had spent weeks transforming with string lights and flowers and all the details that made it theirs. Victoria wore a simple white dress. Caleb wore a suit he'd bought specifically for this, not borrowed or rented. Emma was maid of honor in a dress she'd picked herself. Clara was flower girl, which mostly meant she wandered around dropping petals randomly and charming everyone. Caleb's mom officiated, having gotten ordained online specifically for this purpose. She kept it short and meaningful, talking about love that chose to show up even when things got hard. Marriage isn't about the easy times, she said. It's about deciding every day that this person, this imperfect human standing next to you, is worth staying for. It's about building something real from whatever materials you have, even when those materials are fear and hope and stubborn determination. Victoria and Caleb exchanged vows they'd written themselves. Nothing flowery or poetic, just honest promises about showing up and trying hard and loving each other through whatever came next. I promise to let you help me, Victoria said, voice steady despite the tears. To not carry everything alone. To remember that asking for support isn't weakness. I promise to tell you when I'm scared, Caleb said. To not pretend everything's fine when it's not. To trust that you can handle the truth. They exchanged rings, simple bands that matched, nothing ostentatious. When Caleb's mom pronounced them married, the kiss that followed was sweet and certain and felt like coming home. Emma sobbed through the entire ceremony. Marcus recorded it on his phone despite being told not to. Clara ate 3 cupcakes and threw up on Victoria's dress, which somehow felt appropriate. It was messy and imperfect and exactly right. At the reception, which was really just dinner in the backyard with too much food and a playlist Emma had made, Victoria found herself alone for a moment watching Caleb dance with Clara, both of them laughing. Emma appeared next to her. "You okay?" "Yeah, just taking it in." "It's pretty perfect, huh?" "I don't know if I'd say perfect, but it's real." Victoria looked at her stepdaughter. "Thank you." "For what?" "For accepting me. For defending me. For threatening to slash my tires if I broke your dad's heart." Emma grinned. "I never actually would have. I don't know how to slash tires." The thought was there, though. It was. Emma's expression turned more serious. "I'm glad you didn't die." "Me too. And I'm glad you married my dad. He's less weird now that you're around." "Less weird?" "He smiles more, worries less. You're good for him." "He's good for me too." They stood together, watching the people they loved celebrate something that had started as a lie and become the truest thing either of them had. Later that night, after everyone had left and Clara was asleep, and Emma was in her room, Caleb and Victoria sat on the back porch where this had all begun. "So," Caleb said, "we're married." "We are." "How does it feel?" "The same as yesterday, but also completely different." Victoria leaned against him. "I kept waiting for it to feel like a mistake, but it doesn't." "Good, because I'm not giving you your deposit back." She laughed. "What deposit?" "The emotional one you put down when you asked a stranger to pretend to be your boyfriend. That was a terrible investment." "Was it?" Victoria looked around at the backyard they'd decorated together, the house they'd filled with family, the life they'd built from nothing but stubbornness and hope. "No," she said. "It really wasn't." 3 months later, Victoria started a new company. Not a real estate empire like her father's, something smaller, more personal. A consulting firm that helped other companies develop better parental leave policies and work-life balance programs. "It's not going to make me a billionaire," she told Caleb when she showed him the business plan. "Were you happy being a billionaire?" "Not particularly." "Then who cares?" The company grew slowly but steadily. Victoria worked reasonable hours, took weekends off, never missed Clara's bedtime. The board that had pushed her out of Hale Industries watched her success with what Caleb suspected was mild regret. Emma graduated 8th grade and started high school. She came out officially, not just to family but to everyone, and started dating the girl from her art class. Victoria helped her navigate the complicated feelings around identity and belonging, drawing on her own experience of never quite fitting the mold people expected. Clara turned 2, then 3, growing into a tiny person with her mother's determination and her father's steady calm. She had no memory of the cancer, of the fear, of the months when her mom was too sick to pick her up. She just knew her parents loved each other, loved her, and showed up every day even when it was hard. One evening, almost 4 years after that first night on the porch, Caleb found Victoria in Clara's room, watching their daughter sleep. "You okay?" he asked quietly. 5-year scans came back today. His heart stopped. "And?" "Still clear, no signs of recurrence." Relief flooded through him so intensely he had to lean against the doorframe. "That's it then. You're officially cured." "Statistically, yeah. 5 years cancer-free is the benchmark." "So why do you look worried?" Victoria turned to face him. "Because I keep waiting for the other shoe to drop, for something else to go wrong. It feels like we've had too much good lately." "That's not how life works." "Isn't it? Every time things got good before, something fell apart." Caleb pulled her into his arms. "Maybe we're due for some good that lasts. Maybe we've paid our dues and earned some peace." "You really believe that?" "I have to. Otherwise, what's the point?" They stood there in their daughter's room, holding each other in the soft glow of the nightlight. Two people who'd learned that love wasn't about perfect moments or grand gestures. It was about showing up, staying present, choosing each other even when it would be easier to walk away. "I'm glad you asked me to pretend," Caleb said quietly. Victoria smiled against his chest. "Best lie I ever told." "Second best." "What's the first?" "When I said this would just be one night." She pulled back to look at him. "You knew?" "Not consciously, but some part of me knew the second I saw you on that porch that you were going to change everything. And you said yes anyway." "I said yes anyway." "Why?" Caleb thought about it, really thought about it, trying to find words for something he'd never fully examined. "Because you looked at me like I was real," he said finally. "Like I was a person, not just a carpenter or a single dad or whatever other box people usually put me in. You saw me, and I wanted to see who you were underneath all the performance." "Did you figure out who I was?" "Still figuring it out. That's the fun part." Victoria kissed him then, soft and certain, in their daughter's room with their whole messy, imperfect, miraculous life surrounding them. They'd started with a lie on a quiet porch, a desperate request and an unexpected yes. They'd built something real from that fiction, something tested by pregnancy and cancer and 1,000 small daily struggles. It wasn't a fairy tale. There was no happily ever after, just a commitment to keep trying, keep showing up, keep loving each other through whatever came next. But standing there in the darkness with the woman he'd somehow chosen and been chosen by, Caleb thought maybe that was better than any fairy tale. Because this was real. This was earned. This was a life they'd fought for and won, not through perfection, but through persistence, and that mattered more than any perfect ending ever could. Emma found them there 20 minutes later, still standing in Clara's doorway. "You guys are being weird again," she announced. "Probably," Caleb agreed. "Well, stop it and come downstairs. I made cookies, and if you don't eat them while they're warm, I'm giving them all to Marcus." They followed her down to the kitchen where cookies were indeed cooling on the counter. Clara had woken up and wandered down, drawn by the smell of chocolate chips. Victoria scooped her up while Caleb grabbed plates. They ate cookies in the kitchen table, the four of them, their small, strange family that had been assembled from broken pieces and stubborn hope. They talked about nothing important and everything that mattered. Emma's upcoming art show, Clara's first day of preschool next week, Caleb's latest project, Victoria's new client. Normal conversation, normal life. The kind of ordinary that used to bore Victoria and now felt like the greatest achievement of her life. Later, after the girls had gone to bed and the kitchen was clean, Caleb and Victoria stood at the sink doing dishes together. It was mundane and domestic and exactly what Victoria had been missing her entire life without knowing it. "I love this," she said quietly. "Dishes?" "This, us. The boring parts that aren't actually boring." Caleb handed her a plate to dry. "I know what you mean. Do you ever miss it? Your old life, before I complicated everything? That life was just surviving. This is actually living." He turned off the water, dried his hands. "So no, I don't miss it. Not for a second." They finished the dishes in comfortable silence, then headed to bed. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, work and parenting, and all the complicated logistics of building a life together. But tonight, they were just two people who'd chosen each other, choosing each other again. And that was everything. Years later, when people asked how they met, Caleb and Victoria would exchange a look and smile. "At a party," Victoria would say. "She asked me to dance," Caleb would add. "He said yes. Best decision I ever made." It was the truth, even if it wasn't the whole truth. The real story, the desperate request on a porch, the pretend relationship that became real, the lie that turned into the foundation of their life together, that belonged to them alone. Some things were too precious to share with strangers. What mattered was this. They'd started from nothing but a moment of mutual desperation and built something that lasted. Not because it was easy or perfect or destined, but because every day, in 1,000 small ways, they chose to stay. And in the end, that was the only story that mattered. The one about two imperfect people who loved each other enough to keep trying, keep fighting, keep showing up even when every reason suggested they shouldn't. That was the truth beneath all the lies. That was the life they'd fought for and won.